I'm ready.
We'll call the meeting to order, please. Mr. Ricky Hines, will you do the invocation, please? Would everyone please stand?
Let's bow our heads. Dear Heavenly Father, we come before you today to take care of the town business. May our hearts and our minds be solid on one accord. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Would you join me in the pledge, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. I'd like to welcome each of you tonight. We've got more in attendance tonight than we've had in several months, I think, because of the virus, I think. Item number 5 is approval of the agenda. Do I hear a motion?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 6 is a proclamation. Excuse me. Town clerk has got the proclamation, but is for Fire Prevention Week. We'd just like to acknowledge that at this time that
Yes, proclamation is for Fire Prevention Week, which happened to be last week, but we wanted to recognize Fire Prevention Week, and we would bring to everyone's attention if they have needs for a smoke alarm or anything, please call the fire department during the day, and they can assist you with that. Thank you, Mayor.
thank you, sir. All righty, item number, excuse me, 7 is a public hearing. The first one is rename public street, Railroad Street to the west of the railroad track from Tyson Street to Worthington Street to Martin Luther King Jr. Street.
Mayor and members of the council, good evening, everyone. I would like to ask Brian Jones to come forward and just to quickly go over what notification methods that we put in place to reach out to the public and to the citizens in the affected area.
Thank you, Terry. Mayor, council, good to be before you guys tonight. So got the publicized in the paper on the, I'm sorry, take this off.
Just so we can hear you.
So we did publicize this in the Daily Reflector on the 29th and the 6th, September 29th and the 6th of October. Got a sign on the street for the length of the street, given the intention of having the public hearing for this proposal, and also notified the adjacent property owners along that right of way. So, and you can see on the screen the red line indicates the stretch of road from Tyson all the way to Worthington here.
Thank you, Brian. Okay, with that being said, I'll open the public hearing. Anyone that would like to speak in favor of this, please stand and you can come up and give your name and all and address the audience.
A little intro music.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Dr. Glenn Johnson. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, Council, and Mr. Brian Williams. I'm just going to be real brief. I applaud the effort to rename the street to Martin Luther King Street because now comedians across the nation can stop this nonsense of saying that I don't care where you drive in America, if you're on Martin Luther King Street, there's some violence going on. Martin Luther King stood for nonviolence. There's not violence going on everywhere in America just because the street is named Martin Luther King Street or Boulevard or Lane. So this will help them change their attitude about the Martin Luther King Street. So thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to speak in favor? Anyone else that would like to speak in favor? Anyone that would like to speak in opposition? Please come up here.
My name is Geraldine Worthington Provide. I live on I live on Railroad Street, and I've been there for all of my life. I was born on Railroad Street in the house that I'm living in now. I think it's a terrible idea. Whoever thought it up didn't think it through. I'm not opposed to you naming any street Martin Luther King. I think it's a great idea. But find a place where there's no established homes. We have to go through too much to change our address. There's so many things that you gotta change. Your license, you'll be surprised how much you have to change. I'm getting too old to go through that and be on the phone for 2 hours sometimes just to change an address. And I don't see why can't you go over to Hillcrest Park, Hillcrest, change the name from Hillcrest to Martin Luther King? Or go over on the other side where you're planning to build a seniors building, go over there on Chapman Street, from the church up to where the residential areas stop. Start right there and name that section Martin Luther King. There's other places that you could go, but to have residents go through all these changes doesn't make any sense at all to me. So I really hope that you will not change the name of the street.
Ms. Worthington, Ms. Worthington,
Yes,
what is your address? What is your address over there?
where I live,
Yes, ma'am, what's your house address?
2478 Railroad Street.
Thank you.
I know the house well, Miss Worthington.
Good evening to the mayor. Counselor.
Would you mind taking your mask off, please,
Oh,
sir?
okay.
Just to speak, be fine.
Good evening to the mayor, council, town manager. Since 1994, the Incorporated Winterville Concerned Citizen Organization, the state charter organization, specifically to organize, to coordinate, and implement projects to events which are intended to address social and economic needs for the citizens of Winterville. I stand tonight on behalf of several of our citizens who are resident of West Railroad Street and are unable to get here, but they had called the property owner who are against the proposed to change the name of Railroad Street to the west of the railroad track from Tyson Street to Worthington Street to Martin Luther King Jr. Street. Why wasn't some other main thoroughfare of Main Street, some of our main streets, such as Mill Street, Main Street, Boyd Street, considered or chosen instead just two blocks area in the heart of the black community, with only about 8 livable houses, White council member who put this together would not support such a move without first speaking with the citizens. Many of the citizens I talked with today had not been prior notified of anything. I think it is bad judgment for this position and to be taken in our community, Railroad Street. Only way that I would say that we would support Railroad Street. If you support it, if it was done on the east side, where you have the school and a minimum number of houses. Throughout his brief life, his word, Dr. King's words communicated his vision, his passion, and his faith, and that demonstrated his gift to inspire others to follow his lead. He asked that he be remembered as a drum major for justice. If you will go back to the past, you will see we have brought this issue of Martin Luther King before the council more than once, and each time it was tabled. We feel tonight, on behalf of these citizens, that our council members should go back to the table and take another look at what will be in the best interest of all our citizens, and not to use this item as part of any kind of campaign strategy or agenda. Our citizens deserve better. You should have a more honest platform than just a yard for the signs. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council.
Would you state your name, please?
My name is Rosalind Jones. I'm speaking on the behalf of Gloria Pridgeon, Worthington Pridgeon, who could not be here tonight because of another engagement. And she wrote this letter to the council. Dear Winterville Town Council, my name is Gloria Pridgeon. I give all due respect to those that came up with the proposal. In fact, I applaud you for wanting to honor Dr. King in this matter. Although it seems like a good idea to some, it can be a nuisance to others. I am by no means denouncing your idea. I am only objecting to the location that you chose. Both of my parents were born and reared on Railroad Street. My father's parents, Ernest and Lucy Worthington, reared 11 children. My mother's parents, John and Pearlie Daniels, reared 12 children, all born on Railroad Street. My parents, Robin and Pearlie Worthington, bought a house on Railroad Street. Their three daughters were born and reared at the home which is still standing today. As a child growing up in Winterville, the only street with a name was Railroad Street. And before the school was in existence, there was Railroad Street. Before any street in Winterville had a name, there was Railroad Street. None of the other streets had names, not even Mill Street. It was simply called Highway 11. When we referred to the various streets in town, we adopted names that everyone in town understood. Some of the names were around the corner, in the alley, behind the school, over in Newtown, up the lane or on the highway, etc. These phrases identified our streets. These names were understood by residents when there were no physical addresses. We had to go to the post office every day to call for our mail because none of the streets had names with the exception of Railroad Street. We always referred to Railroad Street by its name, which is a historic fact. It don't change this history. When the other streets were given names, Railroad Street was not among them because it already was named. Dr. Martin Luther King Street should have been considered at that time. Since it wasn't, see if you can consider an alternate way to honor his legacy. Besides changing 2 blocks of a historic street, I will be willing to assist you in your endeavor. From my perspective, renaming only 2 blocks of a street is less than an honor to Dr. King. I bear no ill will to those that came up with this proposal, but I hope it stops at the point of being a proposal and nothing more. Let's keep on slicing streets. Winterville, a slice of life. Respectfully given, Gloria Worthington Prison. As a suggestion, I am a member of Winterville now. My suggestion would be to add Dr. Martin Luther King, Main Street and Martin Luther King Street together. One street, no one has to change addresses. Everybody know Main Street. Dr. Martin Luther King was about all people, not just African Americans. So he stood for all people. So y'all, thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else that would like to speak in opposition?
Good evening, Mayor, Town Manager, and Town Council. My name is Chantel Hawkins. I'm here to speak in opposition of what I call a legacy limited. It is a portion of truth. The proposal for MLK Street in a limited fashion is an offensive proposal. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. did not give a portion of a protest. He did not give a portion of a speech. He did not give a portion of his time being jailed. He did not give a portion of a sit-in. So we would not like to accept a portion of his name on a street where it is a majority of African Americans, and might I add, African Americans who are frequently pulled over and stopped by the Winterville Police Department. I appreciate you having this public hearing, but I would also like to echo that this public hearing was not given in a wide span or in enough time for people to consider coming. A week or two is not enough. I have asked for public comments, including the People Against Racism sign that was put in the Hillcrest Park. There was no public hearing for that. It was just put there. Finally, I would like to share that Councilman Moy came over and greeted me prior to the meeting. And he wanted to clarify when he spoke to me that the word is excellent. I would say to you, Town Council Moy, and I would say to you, Town Council, this would not be excellent, but this would be a total failure. Because while Dr. Martin Luther King did not give or receive a portion of a bullet, that a portion of a street named after him would just be a blur.
Anyone else that would like to speak in opposition?
Good evening. My name is Deidre Gregory, and I oppose the section of the street that will be renamed Martin Luther King Street, only because, as I said, it's only a section of the street. I understand that it's an unfortunate reality that there's sometimes a negative connotation that goes along with MLK Street being renamed. It's usually in a less affluent part of town. So I understand that the street is being cut off right before the businesses and things like that. So if there could be another area proposed, I did speak with the town manager, and he stated that this was simply a proposal that you all received. So it seems as though it should be just a simple meeting or another proposal that can be made, because as the previous woman stated, that he did make a significant impact. So I feel if the street will be renamed Martin Luther King Street, it should be in a significant part of town. Not saying that Railroad Street is not is an insignificant part of town, but it should be an area that is maybe more traveled, a little more noticeable if we are intending to diversify and have the goal of inclusion in Winterville, and that's why I'm in opposition of the street being renamed that particular street. But I am willing to, as you know, you stated, to volunteer to help if there's a board meeting or another meeting that we can come together with the citizens of Winterville to try to come up with a better plan than just this simple portion of a side of a street. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. How you doing? My name is Myron Rouse. Some of you may have heard of me or know me, but I heard about this meeting on social media, and it was a little funny to me that when I seen that they want to name 2 blocks out of a great man, out of a legacy. It's funny that towns have this thing of trying to appease their citizens by giving them a little piece, say, here's something for you. But you got a whole street that you can name after this man. You want to take 2 blocks? That don't make sense. But on top of that, Dr. Martin Luther King fought for equal justice. We're in a town here in the city of Winterville that doesn't have that. The police department here is the worst this side of Eastern North Carolina. They almost killed me. I have so many inboxes and notes from other citizens from this police department. We have a police officer Cruz on record stating that he's targeting minorities and he's still on the job. And you trying to name a street after a man that fought against this is absurd. If you want to do something, first of all, start with your police department. Then you worry about a street. And if you're going to use a street, use a whole street.
Excuse me, sir. This is a public hearing about the street, not about the police department.
Well, it was about
Any
equal
other-
justice.
Or any other department. If you would, please keep your comments on the subject that the public hearing's on, which is Martin Luther King Street. Anyone else that would like to speak in opposition?
Good evening, everybody. I stay on Railroad Street. With that little area right there in the middle, I stay right in front of the school, Brenda Williams. Well, I stay right in front of the school. And like everybody was saying, it don't make no sense for a little bit of street that y'all want to name after Martin Luther King. I'd rather for it be in the park or somewhere like that, because see, my kids, they grew up there on Railroad Street. That's all we know, Railroad Street. So, I mean, then my mom, she's 75 years old, and, you know, like, it's hard for her to go back and get driving license and got to get new registration for the cars and everything like that. It's hard, you know, just change everything over. So I just want to make sure, I mean, I just want to know, you know, I don't see no sense, like everybody's saying, I don't see no sense that that little street right there, and not, I mean, if you want to change the street, go on the side of the school, where it's shorter. Because our street go all the way down, my effect go all the way down this way. So why not just name a little block, just name the whole street, Martin Luther King. Like I said, it's hard, you got to change everything over, driving license, Social Security, everything, you got to change everything over. Don't make no sense to me. So yeah, I don't agree with that.
Excuse me, your name and address again,
Brenda
please?
Williams, 2398 Railroad Street.
2098?
23.
2398?
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to speak in opposition?
Good afternoon. My name is Ona Cradle, and I received a notice about this, and I'd like to say thank you to Mr. Harvey for providing the information that I needed. And I have typed up a petition, and I have visited several of the addresses that are on Railroad Street. I've actually visited 2478, 2474, 2486, 2450, 2444, 2398, 2518, which are all the addresses on Railroad Street to the best of my knowledge. And I typed this, and I typed it from the heart, and as I visited the people, I read it to them and asked them, would they sign it in opposition? To the Town Council, please accept this petition from the undersigned as opposition to the street renaming of the portion of Railroad Street to the west of Railroad Track from Tyson Street to Worthington Street to Martin Luther King Jr. Street. The Winterville Township has been a township of unity and not division. It has been a very prosperous town for many, many years. There is not an impending need for this portion of the street to be renamed for any reason at all. Those requesting this change may need to look at their individual motives and ask whether it will benefit the township and its citizens as a whole, rather than to simply recognize an African-American civil rights leader when we have many leaders entering and exiting our community daily. Let us press forward in unity and not division by opposing this request to rename Railroad Street. Thank you in advance.
Thank you.
And I would like to say that I've been in Winterville all of my life, and my parents have owned the business on Railroad Street. It may seem as though it's not open right now, but it's still there, and we pray that it'll be there for a while. Thank you.
What's the address of the business?
The address of the business is at the corner of Tyson and Railroad, and it's 2518 Railroad Street. Cradle's Grocery. And my address where I live is on Worthington Street. But I tried my very best to look out for the seniors and all the citizens within our community, not just the seniors, but I'm kind of partial to them. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak.
I knew your husband well.
I apologize. I will give you my address and phone number and give you a copy. I just like to have a
Thank
copy
you.
back. And I heard what you said. You knew my husband well. Yes. Thank you very much.
Anyone else that would like to speak in opposition? Anyone else that would like to speak in opposition? If not,
Mayor, before you speak, I do have two items that were submitted to me that I'd like to share at this
Okay.
point, if that's appropriate with the council.
yes.
Mayor, members of the council, we decided, since we knew some of those residents and people that had feelings about the subject could not necessarily be here or get out, we certainly encouraged folks to submit their comments accordingly.
I have one that was from a phone call. I must say that they did not leave their name or any information, but they said that the renaming should be from one end to the other, the entire length. And then I have a letter that I'd like to read. This is from Daisy Payton at 2470 North Railroad Street. The people that live on this street are senior citizen, and for us to have to go through the changing of this street would leave us a lot of stress. As for me, I am head of the household, and I have a husband and a daughter that I am the care person for them. I have to take them and myself to doctor appointments, and sometimes there are many. I have it to do all the shopping. Both of them can't drive because they have health problems. No one said anything or looked into how this could be done and who it would affect. My husband has 7 doctors, my daughter has 6 doctors, and we have 2 drug stores and to many other things that I would have to change. Everything I have to do in a day, I would not have time to change all the things I need changed. At our age, we should not be put through all of the stress. a change of a street for Martin Luther King Street is a good idea, but will you please pick another street for it? Please don't let it be a street that has us senior citizens that have the stress in having to change. Ms. Daisy.
Thank you.
Mayor, may I make it one comment? I just got to make one comment before we go any further.
Well, let's wait until we close the public hearing.
Okay, that'll be fine.
I think there are no others, I don't think, that want to speak in opposition. With that being said, I will close the public hearing.
Make a motion we not rename the street.
We have a motion
I'll second it.
and a second. Now we'll have discussion.
First of all, I'd like to apologize to Ms. Harkin. I think she misunderstood what I said to her. I asked you how you was doing, and then I thought that you asked me how I was doing, and I told you excellent. I was thinking that you made the comment that I was saying excellent to this, what we are speaking of tonight. Was that your comment? I'm asking a question. Can I ask that question? I want to clear that. Yes. Right. Okay, but I just want to let you know that when I said excellent, I was speaking of, that's the way that I was feeling, and that's the way I'm doing at this time. Excellent. Yes, ma'am.
Okay? We have a motion and a second.
Comment.
Any further discussion?
Comment.
I brought this topic up about Martin Luther King Street. And the reason I brought it up is because we've had several requests come before our board since I've been up here in these 14 years to name a section of a street, Martin Luther King Street. And I think at the last time that we had it brought up, it was like, that was what was presented to us, to name a portion of it, Martin Luther King Street. And it was never, ever settled. So I felt like this is something that we needed to settle. If we're gonna do it, we'll do it, and if we're not, we will say we're not gonna do it. Tonight, hearing all the comments from all of you, I appreciate them, because we need citizen involvement in order to govern our community well. So I appreciate you coming. I'm not upset with you, and I hope you're not upset with me. But when things are brought before us, I'm a person that I like to see periods. I don't like to see commas or semicolons, any of the pauses that's in grammar. So I want to see this settled. So tonight, from what you're saying is that your objections to it, of course, have to do with the changing of your home addresses and inconveniences it would take you to do all the paperwork and things like that. And it seems that the majority of you are opposed to it. You live in the area. If I live in an area, I know what best to put in that area. I've been up here as a citizen in years past and had to petition for things that I felt like were better for my community, and the people didn't listen. But I think our board is listening tonight. And again, I applaud you for coming up here. I think that we will maybe look at some compromises as to what can be named after Dr. King. Because had it not been for him, I doubt very seriously if I would be in this board tonight, right here in this place. So thank you to the citizens. We're hearing you. We're listening.
Okay, as Ms. Robertson stated, this matter had come up since I've been here for 24 years as mayor. It's come up one time before, and it was never brought really to a vote, but a lot of discussion. Matter of fact, it ended by one of the council members, who is now deceased, said he would never vote to change an existing street, but he would go to a new street that didn't have addresses and so forth on it. That was his statement. Of course, Lord have mercy, he's gone now, so that has nothing to do with it. All right, we have a motion and a second.
Can you restate that motion, please?
Motion we not rename the street,
Will you
Railroad Street,
Can you make your motion specific?
Railroad Street.
We not rename that
Not-
portion
not-
of Railroad
not
Street?
rename the street.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion not to change the name of Railroad Street?
Rename the street.
Please raise your hand. Okay, the motion carries not to name it. We thank everyone for coming and for their comments. The next public hearing is the Winterville Interconnect site annexation.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we got a couple of town-owned pieces of property up for annexation tonight. The first one is the Winterville Interconnect site. So real quick, so we did post notification in the, the public hearing notice was published in the Daily Reflector on September 29th and October 6th, and the adjacent property owners were mailed notification of this public hearing on September 29th as well. So there's the property outlined in blue right here. So you got the mini stores across the street, Eli's Ridge here, and here's Fort Swamp Canal right here, Worthington Street. You see just the map itself of the annex property, of the proposed annex. But other than that, that's what we've got. I'd be happy to answer any questions you guys have. If not, we're ready for the public hearing, Mr. Mayor.
Declare the public hearing open. Anyone that would like to speak in favor of this annexation? Anyone that would like to speak in favor? Anyone that would like to speak in opposition to this? Anyone that would like to speak in opposition? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing. What's the board's pleasure?
Make a motion we change the name of the street, annex the area. Still on my mind, annex the area, change the name of the street. Help me. That we annex the street.
Okay.
Well, this was.
Site.
Yes, thank you.
Have a motion. And a second. Discussion.
Our discussion, the reason I got confused is, did we send all the property owners on Railroad Street about this meeting tonight?
As far as the renaming of MLK?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yeah,
That's
everybody
what was
that's,
on my mind.
In that.
everybody was
That's
adjacent
what
on
was
the
on my
right
mind, I
of way.
want to get that out.
Right,
Thank
yeah,
you.
yes, sir.
Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion carries. Okay.
All right.
Second item is the Old Tar Road Pump Station.
So Old Tar Pump Station, so this is, again, the applicant petitioner is the town of Winterville. It's located on Old Tar Road south of its intersection with Worthington, and it's just a 0.15 acre tract. Adjacent property owners were mailed notification of this public hearing September 29th, and the public hearing notice was published in the Daily Reflector on the 29th and October 6th. So there's the property in question is right there. So really small, just the property around the pump station. This is the Lawhorn property. You can see the intersection of Old Tar and Laurelis here. So this is Brookfield over here. Here, that's just what the annexation map looks like. Simply showing that piece of property being the one being annexed. Be
How
happy
long-
to answer any questions.
How long has that been property of Winnable, this site?
About 4 years maybe, and then the pump station itself was probably completed 2 years ago, I would say. So we've had it online a little while.
Just wondering why it was a night, I'm just curious.
Because we had the other interconnect sites, so we decided to bring them together at one time.
That's right.
So that we're not doing intermittent.
And we've been having in the works, I mean, to have the consultant and everything draw up all the mapping and the legal descriptions and all that, so it is a process, so.
It's like I found out to have a
It was
septic
in
tank.
the city limits.
A septic tank.
Right.
Permit for the county, 8 months.
Yeah, they're backed up big time.
8 months.
I think the counties are like a lot of other people. They're having a hard time having
We all are,
positions.
we all are.
Filled, yep.
Tough times.
That's all I got, Mr. Mayor. If you've got any questions, I'll be happy to answer any more.
Declare the public hearing open. Anyone would like to speak in opposition, in favor? Anyone that would like to speak in favor? Anyone that would like to speak in opposition? Anyone that would like to speak in opposition? Hearing none, what's the board's pleasure? Close the public hearing. What's the board's pleasure?
I make a motion that we accept the annexation.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay.
Thank you, Brian.
The item number 8 is public hearing, and the board,
Okay.
beg your pardon?
Thank you, Brian.
Yeah. What did I say?
I want to make sure we're on the same page.
Okay, public hearing. I do have to read this. This is something the board adopted many years ago. The public comment period of 30 minutes provides an opportunity for residents to comment on any item included in the agenda or to address the town council on any other matter related to the town of Winterville. For an item included in the public hearing section of the agenda, residents should address the council at the time the mayor invites public comment on the item. No public comment may be made to the council during the meeting except during the public comment period or as part of a public hearing. Individual speakers are limited to a maximum of 3 minutes, and no more than 3 speakers may address the council on any single matter. The town council may elect to take no action on the matter addressed by the speaker, may schedule the matter for further consideration at a future council meeting, or may refer the matter to town staff for disposition. Copies of the town comment policy are available in the rear of the assembly room. And the first one I have here is Elaine Steeman, if I pronounce that wrong.
Robert.
Okay, I'm sorry, this one, manager just told me, this is the first one, Mr. Robert, I probably mispronounced that. Seaman. Yeah.
Right through, easiest way, if you want to look right through it, is just
Right
this
arrow?
way. If you need to point anything, you can use
Thank you.
Good evening, council. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Robert Simeon. I live in Summer Winds community. I am here to address all present homeowners and the board about a persistent problem all of us have with water drainage. At no time am I stating anything with malice or animosity. During this presentation, I only want to bring urgency to the dangerous situation. I will refer to the term swales, Webster's definition, swales, which is a low-lying depression, often wet stretch of land with gradual sloping sides. Storm drains, swales, drainage canals without maintenance. I have spoken with Mr. Ben Williams, Assistant Town Manager, and Mr. Brian Jones of the Planning Department about these problems at hand, and was informed that, first, adjacent properties within the same HOA, homeowners are responsible for the maintenance of the swales behind the individual homes. Second, but adjacent homes of separate HOAs, swales are the responsibility of the town to maintain, as shown in the slide that swales have filled in either by man or nature. You can see where they've filled in the bottom right. I have delivered copies of these photographs that I'm showing in this presentation to Mr. Williams in an envelope September 17, 2021, clearly stating, please call me if there are any questions, and was informed he will get back to me. Mr. Williams has met with me October 6th and then called me the 7th of October, promising to deliver the most current engineering plans for Phase 2 of Copper Creek. They were delivered this evening. New phase of Copper Creek borders all three of our communities, Magnolia Ridge, Summer Winds, and Copper Creek first phase. Currently, the new construction of Copper Creek second phase, they are installing storm drains that connect to a retention pond. With existing storm drains, spring showers will allow us to water our lawns and flowers and distribute the excess flow of water to appropriate areas for disbursement, meaning the wetlands behind Magnolia Ridge into Copper Creek. Now thunderstorms and heavy downpours, our system currently is at a maximum capacity. Properties are saturated due to the lack of maintenance of the swales and the canals. Water from Magnolia Ridge swale and Summer Winds storm drain now merge, excluding the water from the overgrown swales starting at Valencia Drive, which connects Copper Creek to Summer Winds. The drainage canal that lies between Copper Creek and Summer Winds, two separate communities and two separate HOAs. This was shown earlier in slide 2. We were informed by Mr. Williams that 3 adjoining swales will all merge into one pipe. It will be covered and run half the length of Copper Creek Phase 2, then into an open canal down the side of the detention pond, all of these emptying into the wetlands and Swift Creek, which behind Little Gem Circle and Magnolia Ridge. Please picture a funnel. It will release a quart of liquid per minute, but you are pouring a gallon a minute into the funnel. The result, overflow at the top of the funnel and exiting the bottom of the funnel, filling an unknown area. My wife is going to continue.
The result is this. With the current system and a heavy rain, this is Crimson Drive and Summer Winds. We have a problem. As of 2019, the population in Winterville was just under 10,000. Our storm drain's monthly fee is $4, totaling $40,000 per month. With what result? Detention basin or retaining basin is an excavated area installed on or adjacent to tributaries of rivers, streams, lakes, or bays to protect against flooding, and in some cases downstream erosion by storing water for a limited period of time. Wikipedia. Please note these photos were taken September 19, 2021. There has been 1/4 inch of measurable rainfall since the beginning of the month, and this is the level of the detention pond. We are told the water will be released, but to where? Again, into the wetlands, Swift Creek. How is it going to be slowly released? With 2 drainage pipes located at the back of the detention basin at 2 different levels. This is causing erosion into the wetlands and raising the water level by Little Gem Circle in Magnolia Ridge. This serves no purpose but to increase the water level behind Magnolia Ridge and back up the water flow into the other communities. In closing, previous town council meetings on September 13, 2021, 3 council members mentioned we have a water drainage problem. Ladies and gentlemen, this is an understatement of what we will have with the hurricane. Example, Katrina hit Louisiana, 1,800 deaths, $125 billion in damages. Sandy hit the northeast coast, 285 deaths, $62.5 billion in damages. September 1st, 2021, Hurricane Ida hit New York City, 3.5 inches of rain per hour, causing $50 million in damages. Please do not allow us to become a statistic. Our home lost, or more importantly, 1 life lost is too many. We all have read or heard about climate change and population pollution. We must mitigate this before it happens to our community, homes, and families. I respectfully thank the council for allowing us to speak here tonight, and looking forward to see what changes will be made to the existing and future problems of our communities.
Now, did this person sign up, or the next person I have is Mr. Sloop.
This is Ms. Sloop.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Before you,
I'm sorry.
Hey.
It is Robin Sloop. I'm sorry.
excuse me, before, Ms. Simmons, before y'all leave, could you state your address? And the next people that come up, could you please state your address where you live, so make sure that we have that in our minutes?
Sure.
Please.
My name is Robert Simeon, and I live at 329 Crimson Drive.
Thank you.
In the community of Summer Winds.
Thank you.
Christine Simeon, 329 Crimson Drive in Summer Winds.
Okay.
Robin Sloop, a girl. I live at 2867 Little Gem Circle. And I actually live where the drainage is coming. It's actually going into my backyard. And I understand, like, Mr. Williams came, met with me. He was great, wonderful guy. He, I think, kind of agrees that there's a situation there. I don't know if you're aware of it. And I understand, I moved here from the north. I understand there is water issues here, which Mr. Ben Williams explained to me.
Ms. Luke, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Do you mind getting closer to the microphone and maybe pull it down towards you just a tad?
Again.
Thank you so much.
Here you go.
Sorry.
That's good.
So basically, long story short, we just want to know and be our neighborhood, all the adjoining neighborhoods, want to make sure that we're not going to be flooded in a big storm. I understand that there's flooding issues, but we're trying to figure out how we, with you or the builder or whoever, can guarantee that we're going to be safe in the case of a big storm. Just kind of.
At this point, I think we can, staff sure should look at this.
We had having 130 condominiums at the corner of Main and Highway 11. And two of us opposed that development because storm window retention ponds don't work.
Again, you can't state that because you're not an engineer. You cannot keep stating that unless you got factual information, Mr. Moore. You cannot state that. If you're not an engineer, you can't say that stormwater ponds do not work.
The
Now,
chairman
you can't say that.
The county's 20-year veteran on the Soil and Water Board has told me over and over again, they don't work.
He's not an engineer.
He's in charge of.
Like, can you put, are you capable of putting sewers in or something like that? Our biggest fear is it's all done. It's 2 years from now. The builder's gone, everybody's moving on in their life, and all of a sudden a big storm comes. And already there are garbage pails going down Roberts Block on a big storm. You know, respectfully, we understand that there are rain situations, but how do we guarantee our safety living there, our investments? We moved here a year and a half ago to retire, and I love it here. It is a piece of heaven, but now I'm living in fear, and I don't know what to do. We need your help.
Does the water stand for long periods of time?
That's what I was going to ask.
I'm sorry?
I know it. Does the water stand for long periods of time? When we get a lot of rain, and I live on Laurie Ellis, my whole front yard floods. It's like,
yeah, no, I get. But what happens, we're a sponge right now, and we're full.
but does the water sit there? Does it sit there to the next day?
Yeah.
So when it rains, if I'm hearing you correctly,
it stays.
That water stays, I'm talking about in the streets.
No, it stays in my
I'm not
backyard.
talking about in the swales or in the low-lying areas.
It's in my backyard.
But does it, in the streets, does it sit there for a day?
In a big enough storm, it will be there for days.
Unfortunately, in a big enough storm, it's going to be in several locations for an extended period of time. That's the challenge when we get these
Correct.
rain events.
You're correct. But the fear factor is, now that this development's coming in without the right drainage, if the sponge is full,
I understand.
I mean, you're gonna be talking money, you know. Our sponge is full. Like, if I could take you all for a little walk in my backyard and make you lunch, you would probably, I'm talking about where the construction's going into, you'd be like, wow, you're right. Like, if this was your backyard, you'd be like, oh, oops. Like, it would scare you, and we're scared.
If I could, I'm going to ask Mr. Williams, who's in the conference room, to step out here and just try to kind of piggyback off your
Yeah.
comments and talk
That'd be
about a little
great.
bit, if that's okay with council, just to talk about.
That's fine, because my same question was the question that Mark had. Is the water ponding consistently, or is the system actually working as we have hard rains and the water evaporates over, a period of time there? That's what I want to know.
Well, and I'm curious, Ben, if you want to expand on what's being proposed in the additional phase out there at Copper Creek.
Go to the mic, please.
Who was the engineering group on that? Do you recall?
We've got a couple of different ones involved in this. You've got
Yeah.
3 different,
So we can hear you. Thank you.
we've got a couple of different engineering firms involved in this. You've got 3 different subdivisions, one of which has had multiple engineers due to phasing. As far as the functioning of the system, when we do have rains that are high intensity, it does overwhelm the system. However, it does catch up over time. I have not been out post-event to determine the length of time with which the water stays in the street. I have seen the photos that Mr. Simeon provided. I did not witness that particular event. With regard to the design of the swales I'm going to close my eyes and think so I can keep my subdivisions in order. The swales in Copper Creek are there due to the developer's desire to design it as a low-density development, which required swales rather than a BMP. Those swales are the HOA's responsibility for maintaining and operation. A portion of those swales in the first phase of Copper Creek are going to be diverted into the pond for the second phase. That swale that runs along the southern border of Copper Creek, adjacent to Summer Winds, is a confluence. There's 3 features that collide there at the rear of Mr. Simeon's property, one of which comes behind Little Gem Circle in Magnolia Ridge. Some of that flow that's going into that area will be diverted into the pond, which has gone through our review process and has been sealed by multiple engineers, reviewed by our consulting engineer, deemed satisfactory to our stormwater ordinance, designed to accommodate the 10-year event as well as a 100-year event. It is designed to take a 1-inch rainfall event and hold it for 2.36, if I recall from the email today, days for a slow release. The discharge will be, the discharge pipe out of the stormwater pond is significantly smaller. Well, it's a 30-inch pipe where there's a 42 coming in, collecting the subdivision to create a bottleneck, if you will, so the water won't go out as fast as it's coming in. It will be dissipated through the riprap feature on the downstream end of the pond, and then that water will sheet flow across that riprap and into that wetland area just upstream from the sloop property. The pre-development, based on the stormwater calculations provided by the engineers involved with the Copper Creek subdivision, the post-development runoff will be less than the pre-development runoff based on those calculations. Now, the proof will be in the pudding when we have that event. We go based on what the numbers show on paper. That's what the engineers provide. That's what they review. If things function like they are designed, then it should be satisfactory. Certainly in cases where I know along Little Jim, there's a lot of sedimentation, and I'm sure we'll bring this up later. There's lots of areas in town that are receiving sedimentation due to construction work or home site or just site development in general. That just segues into another problem with regard to stormwater system maintenance, inspections, cleaning so that they operate at full capacity. I would imagine that some of that network down there in Little Jim has some sediment in the bottom, as well as some portions of the network up in Summer Winds near Mr. Simeon's property. They could certainly use some time and attention for cleaning out so that they operate nice and smooth, just like brand new. That's something that could be beneficial. There could be certainly some benefit to, when I spoke with some of these folks last week, intend to contact the drainage district to check on their past and future maintenance of Swift Creek, which is what's draining that side of town, to see what they've done and what they plan to do for maintenance to try to alleviate or eliminate some of the backing up of that water that's coming down from Greenville and us and heading to Aden and heading to Vanceboro.
That would be Kendall Paramore.
Yes, sir, Mr. Paramore,
Yeah,
yep.
Paramount. They got plenty of money.
Spoke with him a week ago, and he said there weren't no problems with Swift Creek. That they had already done some.
I knew that, and I conveyed to them that they had been utilizing
And I
some of those
specifically
funds,
asked
and
for the one we
and
had.
I just wasn't sure
Last month.
when they did what they've done. So I was just going to check on that.
Is there any way in the development plans that we can guarantee that people that purchase homes, I know the situation over at Magnolia Ridge, you know, you went over there with me to Little Jim Circle, and we looked at that situation there, whereas the first time I looked at it, I didn't have, I'm not technical, the Y, we didn't have that Y thing there that came together behind, I think it's the Chung's house, you remember? It wasn't there. The next time I went, they had put these large pipes there, and this water was converging into a small ditch to run, you know, down the back of their property, and they were concerned about the erosion, the way it was eroding the sides, you know, the water was taking away the sides of the ditch. But I know that developers, you know, probably gone pretty much from that development, but it would seem like something we could do so that when they buy, when people purchase homes in these subdivisions, that the developer doesn't come and all of a sudden puts a big Y behind their house, pulling water together, and then, you know, then it comes to us. That's what I was referring to when we talked about the subdivision at the last meeting. Problems that develop, and then the developer's gone, but the homeowners got the problem, and they come to us. I'm not complaining about you all, because you pay taxes, you're citizens just like everyone else. But I feel like these are problems that you shouldn't be having.
Well, my question is, the gentleman, what's your address? Look, okay, all right. When you purchased that property, there should have been a disclosure that was wetland, correct? Right, but I'm just asking that question. So you knew there was some wetland there, okay? No, I just wanted to ask that question.
The only reason I've seen the water come up right in my backyard. Now, you're talking about,
Good.
and you took all these wetlands, all those woods away, which absorbs the water. Put 42 houses, bring it off into the back of my property. Water comes up halfway in my yard now. Where's it going to go after that?
Right.
If you look all across the town, it's the same way. My yard, 1910 house, floods. I own 6 properties downtown Winterville. They all flood.
I'm from Cape Cod, I'm
Yeah.
used to flood.
Yeah.
Only because we've seen how much water comes in. There's a lot of rain down here. First time I've been in Long Pants in a year. But we've noticed what the water does. And it's gonna be like a sponge. Sponge can't put no more water into it. So our backyard lays low. We have a runoff from our house. We have runoffs that go down both sides, out the back of our yard, and we have a drainage system. Like some ditches in the back, all the way to drain. It comes halfway up in our yard. Now, you're taking, there's 40 houses that I assume going in there right now.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
Now, that was all woods before. We had that water problem. Now it's all houses that have to have runoffs coming off of their houses. It's a retention pond, which is all the water stuff too. I understand what all of this is. But you're not getting, which I don't think anybody's getting, is all the water we're getting now is going to be triple to the water. You know, everybody's saying, oh, it goes down, it's going to be cut down, it's going to go down the money. Look at all the rest of this stuff. How about the rain started coming? With that draining, where the 2 canals are in that retention pond, we went back there. That was very helpful in showing us a lot of things there. Showing so much you can handle. I look at everything. I know about time releases. I understand why there isn't a bigger catch basin instead of a contour box, we call it. Instead of, we call it a direction box. Where I'm from, Cape Cod gets wet just like it does here. You told me when I came down, wait till you see hurricanes. You know? I know about hurricanes. Try northeast.
Yes.
In all of our drain systems, we have catch basins that are time release. I pipe, pipe a foot lower with a basin that releases, a big basin that releases it. It's a spot. They're releasing it to one spot. Not releasing it to 3 spots. It's coming from 3 spots to 1. That's our backyard.
Well, I asked the town manager, should we set aside a time when other people will come all over town and talk about our water problem, what we should do, maybe increase our monies for stormwater?
I do know that staff has identified not just your area, because we're certainly aware of that, but areas all over town where we have challenges in certain rain events. We notice that these rain events are becoming more frequent. And so it's going to be something that we need to continue to talk about with the public, try to inform people where homeowner responsibility lies, where town responsibility lies. I think Ben did a great job of going over Phase 2 of Copper Creek, just sort of so the council would hear what's planned. I understand everyone has an opinion on some of these stormwater management practices and some of the ways that stormwater is retained or released, and everyone doesn't agree that everything is as effective as they think it should be. Unfortunately, though, we have a certain number of things afforded to towns, cities, areas with respect to how stormwater is managed, and we do our level best to try to work within those parameters such that citizens don't have to deal with any more rain than is absolutely necessary, but at the same time, we can continue to move forward. So to answer your question, Councilman Moore, long answer, is that I do think that probably some additional workshops to talk about stormwater, to talk about what's flooding versus really what is standing water that recedes in an amount of time that's acceptable. And it doesn't always necessarily meet everyone's idea of what that should be. But to just try to get additional information out there so that we're all working collectively off the same page about how we're going to manage existing stormwater, continue to develop, make things no worse than they already are, and how we can improve them down the way. It's a big challenge.
I think we need to invite Mr. Fairmore
That meeting.
to a meeting.
Okay.
So
Be glad
that
to.
he can explain maybe what they're doing, because he's in charge of these
Okay.
major ditches and canals,
Right.
which are extremely important to drainage in our community. I think we need to have him and put him on the hot seat, so to speak. Because he can tell me one thing in a conversation, but I'd like to hear it when he's standing up there, and he can share, you know, whatever they've spent or whatever they've cleaned out over the last 12 to 24 months.
Be glad to do that. We'll try to get the word out so that citizens that are affected by all of the areas that the drainage district manages so you can kind of hear what their practices are and how they manage areas beyond our ability to.
Both sides, I turned the city ground into a country club. People back in the clubs and everything now. Doesn't bother us. We clean up the creek and we try to get it so it goes, we see a lot of debris. While that wetland, shows that tree that fell about 7 months ago, give her a fall, uprooted.
Right.
And that's only 12 feet away from my fence. I have already replaced my fence, first 2 months of the year. I'm just wondering what's going to happen if it falls and keeps getting falls.
Well, and I do think that we've got these, we're seeing a change in the weather regardless of how people feel individually about weather events, that we are seeing a change, and it's going to produce additional challenges for us to try to grapple with what we're going to do with existing infrastructure. So I do think that staff can try to put together some opportunities for everyone to sit down and talk about it and try to
Lake Winterville. Build us a lake.
Well, my wife wants to put a pool in the backyard. But we've also seen it in our neighbor's yard, all the way, that canal has over this, town's house, we've seen it, we've been here a year and a half. But I just was wondering, when they started building everything, we brought it back there, I'm also a contractor. A lot about all this.
This all sounds very familiar then, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah, it sure does. But the way they concentrated it, where it was, doesn't make any sense. If they were to bring it back more and maybe spread it out a little bit, but where they are right on that corner, right where the end of that ditch. So that 4 feet, no problem.
Bless you.
Bless you.
Can we make sure we include our stormwater board
Absolutely.
in the meetings that we're going to have?
Absolutely.
Mr. Smith has the
I think you
largest
all
lake.
have conveyed your feelings pretty well tonight, and I think,
We'll be,
I think we've gone way over the limit that we need to. Look, I was born and raised right down the road from where you all live. 85 years ago, it flooded, and it still floods. That,
well,
what now? I will say I was born and raised on a farm, but it flooded. Just, and as Ben brought it up, these 100-year floods, we have problems. You all were not here, I don't think, when Floyd came,
99.
and it flooded everywhere.
well, we're having to back up.
That's one of the reasons, like, you put a shed in that backyard, a shed on it, I can
Right. And I will. I will add one thing. Be careful of your real estate agents. Because my sister lives in the area right out there where you all are. And, but her daughter, some years ago, went to a house, was gonna buy a house here in Winterville. And the real estate agent says, That is a fine house. It never floods. We took people off the front porch of their house because it was flooded. But the real estate agent said, it never floods. So you have,
We did our research.
you have to be careful.
Well, I think what I'm hearing is council would like the drainage district to come and do a presentation. We will try to make sure we get the good word out so that you all know when that's going to happen. We will continue from a staff perspective to look at not only your area, but the areas of concern throughout town, and continue to do a good job of working with not only our consulting engineers, but the engineers on the projects themselves to make sure that what they're bringing forward and proposing for additional development is within what our policy calls for, in addition to just being good stewards of not dumping additional water on citizens that already live here. So I think we've got a good plan of action. I'll definitely be back in touch with council and the citizens at large to let you know what we'll be talking about. And
We
Ben, I
appreciate
appreciate
y'all
all those
coming.
details.
Yes. Mayor Jackson, do we need to have a motion on that? We don't have to have a motion, it's just something that we need to address to
I
our,
think we pretty well covered without a motion.
okay,
I think,
great.
I know staff's clear, and Ben, thanks again for going over all those details, but we'll be back in
Good job.
touch and keep that at the forefront.
And
All right,
I would like to
Thank
say,
you all.
I would like to say also that I know that you asked for a guarantee. That was one of your concerns, and thank you. I'm not saying that, but I'm just going to let you know that I do believe that we're going to look at it, and we're going to look at it very closely, and we're going to do our very best to help and solve the problem. Yes, sir.
That's all I want. I don't want, I know it was down here, we both know that, everybody in our area knows that, everybody I just don't want to keep on having trees fall, they're falling now. And having, I don't even want to be like that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That's one of the problems, it is.
Well, at least we have a plan right now, and that's a base. Thank you. Yes.
Okay, the next person that signed up is Ms. Elaine Seaman.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Dr. Elaine Seaman. I live at 2666 Academy Street. And this is my second time here. I spoke in 2016 about the same issue. And tonight I'm representing a number of citizens who, I don't know if any of you are here to talk about the solar energy. Nope. A lot of people on the next door site are asking a lot of questions, and there seems to be confusion as to where the roadblock is. Some people have contacted solar electric companies, and they have said that the town won't let them install solar electric panels. I came to request that in 2016, and there was, let's see, 3/14/2016 in old business, there was an update on possible implementation of a solar policy. Ben had researched that because both a resident, who was me, and a potential developer had made inquiries. And for the commercial person, the town, these are the notes from your website that I did some research. The town zoning ordinance said they would need to review for commercial, and the last thing listed on that date is that the staff is negotiating and budgeting an electric assessment management plan and a utility rate analysis, and that's the last that I can see in any of the town documents about this. I was able to find, thank you, sir, that Electricities is the provider, and I was out on their site. Unfortunately, I did not hear back from them, but they have a lot of promotion up there about being a green company and so forth. So I'm wondering, Is there a policy now? People on the website have said that, 2 doors down, they have panels, or maybe a street away, and I think then it's GUC. I will also reference, so people were very confused. I will also reference minutes from 11 years ago today, actually, October 11th, 2010, and this was in reference to the federal policy that, the guidelines that were approved in June 1st that required every utility company in North Carolina to generate or buy renewable energy credits and pay a certain amount. And in the notes, it said that these RECs will increase until Winterville meets the new federal guidelines. And then, and I copied this down verbatim, it said the town has established a solar program, this is 2010, that will encourage people to use green power by installing solar panels. The town is currently testing the system to make sure that we can meter electricity produced by solar panels. The finance department will set the customer up with a negative rate showing on the bill as a credit to offset the overall amount due by the customer. We may have to revisit this if other options prove better. The town recommended approval and implementation to begin immediately, and the minutes say that the motion carried unanimously. But that's the last time I can see any movement toward a policy. So the state of North Carolina, I think, is number 3 in the country in solar electric, and I'm just wondering where we are. I know there are tax credits and so forth. I was hoping to do this in 2016.
I can give a quick update. I can see Mr. Sutton in there, so raise your hand if I get off my accuracy on this. So I've been here that whole time since 2010 with respect to what we were discussing back then on solar and RECs and the whole federal requirement to buy those or generate those, et cetera. Well, we are in compliance with our REC program, but most of that involves us buying these RECs. And
the reason, the reason you had to buy them then was that you had no utility customers who were generating solar electric.
And it would take quite a few customers to generate the amount of RECs we're required to buy. And what I will say is that I don't know that the REC program really has, in North Carolina specifically, there are some areas of the state doing a really good job with some of this renewable energy, these in-house programs. But there's a lot of small entities like Winterville that the requirements for keeping up with a program is so overwhelming in and of itself, we couldn't even continue to do it in-house. We have to contract that out. So the solar policy never really got a good kickoff internally because there were a lot of requirements we just weren't able to meet at that time. We know that solar is an interest to some citizens. I'm not aware that we prohibit, as long as they meet all of the building codes of the state, et cetera, people from putting solar panels on their homes. But what we don't do is buy any of that energy or allow any of that energy to go back on our grid. Robert's shaking yes, so I'm still good.
Why?
Well, because we just have not been in the position we have felt like with everything else from an electric standpoint that we've had going on, where we've changed our wholesale, where we buy our energy from. Electricities is really an organization that we are an associate member of. They do lobbying for us, they do marketing for economic development, they offer a lot of things to us, but they don't sell us energy. We're not involved from a power agency perspective. We buy our power from Kings Mountain, North Carolina. So that is a natural gas plant that was created. We switched from Duke. We buy for this very reason, it was a cleaner energy. Having said all of that, that's why we are where we are. So I think you could put solar panels on your home, but what we don't currently do is have a mechanism for you to sell us back any energy. Now, we're aware, if I may, we're aware that there's at least an opinion out there floating around, and it may be accurate, and we're trying to verify that as to whether we have a requirement to do that. And assuming that we do, we'll certainly proceed accordingly, but I'm not prepared tonight to say with 100% certainty that there is a requirement for us to do that, and we're certainly checking into that, definitely based on your renewed desire to come and speak about that, and I know discussions you've had with staff.
I know that GUC will do the buyback.
Yes. Of course, and just
And they're
so you
much
know,
bigger.
part of our town's on GUC power.
Right.
And the rest is on ours, and their policies obviously are not always the same as ours.
At the very least, I would encourage there to be maybe more transparency or more discussion, because I don't really go out to next door that much, but my ex-husband and I built a passive solar house in Greene County in the 80s. So this has been a lifelong thing for me. And when I first started talking about solar electric, it was when I had installed solar hot water. I have a panel on my roof that's paid itself back 5 years ago. But a lot of people are really confused. And just, I probably shouldn't say this, but I will. One other thing, in I think it was 2018 or 2019, East Carolina had, John Chafee had a symposium about energy, and he had a number of representatives there from various offices in the state, and I had spoken with them, and they were kind of like, oh yeah, Winterville. And John actually...
We get that a lot sometimes.
John
and
actually,
I love John.
I love John too. He's been a friend of mine through World Trade for a long time. But he actually said, Elaine, maybe you need to move to a more progressive town.
Well, I would hate to know that he said that.
He did, and maybe I shouldn't share that because he said it maybe as friend to friend, but it kind of hurt my feelings because I do love this town. But I think a lot of the people who are moving here have that hope and expectation that green energy would be part of their lives. And
Well, to reiterate, it can be, but what we currently don't do is buy that energy back or have it put back on our grid. Now, having said that, we're in the process of gaining this additional information. Be more than happy to share that with everybody once we get it solidified. I'm just not prepared tonight to say that I feel 100% confident that that's what we have to do.
I believe one person who had written on there had said, I think that Mr. Sutton told them, yes, you can have a panel, but you have to be off the grid. Being totally off the grid is somewhat scary for people.
I understand.
So,
and I do know in a lot of places that it's not either or. So I get the fact that there may be folks like yourself that are looking for that whole, component, and I understand. So we just would like to make sure that we're confident in what we're talking about. And so if you don't mind giving us, I know it's been a long time, but if you'll give us a little bit more time in our renewed efforts to gain additional clarity, we'll definitely be back in touch. And then try to share that with the community at large.
Quick question, are the tax credits still in place? I thought the tax credits
I don't
had
think so. I think
expired.
they've expired. At least the tax credits we were familiar with. That's not to say there couldn't be another set. I'm not.
Well, when I wasn't sure exactly where we were getting power, and that was difficult to find too. I know that Duke has credits. Duke Power is good.
We were with Duke for a long time, but we no longer purchase wholesale from Duke.
Right, I understand.
Right.
They charged us a lot of money for
That's
coax, and we had no responsibility in it before we left. We were there for a short time. They
Yeah.
charged us, in the courts, I thought they'd give us some money back, but hadn't yet.
But they can do credits because they charged everybody else for their mess.
Yeah, I'm not a fan, believe me, I'm not a fan, but I think there are credits out there for.
Could we set up, once we get the information, to share it, and I know you were sharing it with her tonight, and
Yes, and-
anyone on, of course, YouTube, but could we set up, say, a meeting invitation for the others? I know that Mr. Harvey does a good job of putting stuff on Nextdoor.
He does.
Somehow it comes up and lets me know that there's something on Nextdoor, so I go to Nextdoor and I've seen the things there. And maybe that would, answer the questions for others who would like to do solar.
Absolutely.
Or who are interested in it also. And would also gauge how much interest we have in the community about solar energy and solar panels and things like that.
Well, and I don't want there to be confusion, and thank you for sharing that, because if there's a way that we can, once we're clear, make it more clear to citizens, we certainly want to do that and commit to do that once we feel like we have all the information.
The last
Thank you
meeting
for
we had,
listening.
a few months ago, I asked the chairman of Electric Cities, I said, look down that list of who represents Winterville the last 20 years. It was me. How many meetings have I been invited to in 20 years? None, because we're non-voting members. But they will email me about voting for a person, for the board, but there's no choices. They give you one name, and you get to vote yes or no. They've already decided who's going to be on that board, but we don't have any say-so on that board. We can't even get to their meetings. We're just non-voting.
Just a quick and aside, the reason we're associate members of Electricities is they're predominantly funded, and their main membership are those, what they call power agency utilities that initially bought into all of this nuclear debt back when that was the cheapest and looked like the way forward. Winterville at that time decided not to become a power agency. I think in the long run, it certainly worked in our favor, but there's several of a small group in North Carolina of non-power agencies. I'm still looking at Mr. Sutton in there. And we meet by ourselves and we, talk as a different group, but that's why we don't have a full voting membership in Electricities, and so there is a differential.
I know Pitt Green apparently has a lot of folks. My ex-husband gets rebates all the time that comes from the solar energy that people have.
But thank you for coming back and hanging in there with us.
Okay, thank you.
And I went over 3 minutes, but that's okay.
My fault.
Okay, moving on. Item number 9 is the consent agenda.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Moving on under old business, the sewer rehab project.
Mr. Williams is joining us again.
Good evening again. The item before you is change order number 1 for the sewer rehab project for the gravity collection system. It's a changing of the cost by reduction by $17,000 and some change, as well as adding 30 days to the contract time, the calendar for setting the substantial completion date, which then also impacts when the project will be completed, also affects the liquidated damages date. The extended date has already passed. The contractor is still behind. They have provided a anticipated, things keep going smoothly, they anticipate being done with all the major work on October 18th. Now, that does not mean that they're going to be gone and out of town and with their check headed to the bank. We will, at that point, go around and do a walkthrough to check all of the areas of work to ensure that what was in the contract to be done was done to our satisfaction, and everything is cleaned up and left like it's supposed to be. So there will be a significantly long punch list, I would imagine, of things for them to do. So they will still be in town post October 18th, but that's the target for substantial completion.
Anyone have any questions?
I had a question about why hadn't cleaned the streets. It really looked bad.
They over the weekend, they tackled a few of the streets, Jones, I believe, Maine, not all of Maine. They were traveling up and down Depot due to some work going on Saturday, trying to finish up the services that they were working on at the end of last week.
I feel sorry for these people who live on Depot and Chapman Street. Their houses are filthy.
Well, I have had conversations with them about their laydown yard and that street and their need, and I will certainly,
I've washed my house.
I'll
down
try to
twice.
scold them again tomorrow as well.
I've washed my house twice, but that's dirt I have, but they've had it for 4 months.
Right, yeah, I mean, you know, we had about 3 weeks plus of no rain, so it was great working conditions, but it was definitely created dusty conditions in that area. Yes, sir.
I understand what Mr. Moore is saying. How do you fix that? I don't know, what do we do? I've had people complain about it. I mean, do we expect the contractor to have a couple of power sprayers on hand? Construction makes a mess.
You know, climatic conditions, certainly, yeah, I mean,
I don't know what they can do.
yeah, I mean, if it had rained, it would have kept the dust down, I mean, that'd be ideal. I mean, the more you require, the more they're gonna charge, the more they're gonna
Sure, that's
put
what I'm
in,
saying.
certainly, yeah, I mean, we can require
I just don't know what
street.
we can do. I realize people are upset, but it's 50 and 60-year-old pipes down there that need to be replaced. And when you bust open the cement, and we hadn't had an inch of rain in 6 weeks or 2 months, it's gonna get dusty, it's gonna get dirty. Just don't know what we can do unless we all go to Lowe's, get a power sprayer, and come out and spray everybody's car and everybody's house.
I wash mine at least 3 times a week, which I need to exercise anyway, so that's okay.
I'm kind of taking up for you here, Ben.
I thank you.
And
Well, I get
I
it,
just
yeah, I
don't know
mean,
what we can do.
my vehicle has been dusty too.
No disrespect to Mr. Moore and anybody that's called me about it, but I just don't know what we can do. Construction
It's
makes a
construction,
mess.
right. Well, Ben, do they
It will
want
get
to,
better.
do they run a water truck?
I mean, they have, they're on their broom, piece of equipment that would just make it even worse. There is a container that can make it a little wet, but they do not have a street sweeper per se that actually sprays
Do we have
water.
one that runs?
Yes.
It does?
We're in the
Well,
process of getting
We have a brand new one.
It's working?
Yeah, brand new, sitting in the garage. We don't have tags on it, so in that one,
I
so,
thought somebody told me the brand new one was messed up.
No, it just wasn't road ready,
Oh, okay.
which means we have to have tags in order to be able to drive it.
Well, this is what I think. If we don't have tags, I don't think the police chief will give us a ticket.
I
We're
don't
trying
know.
to clean the roads.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
but-
So as far as I'm concerned, put it out there without tags.
somebody runs into me though,
Exactly.
that's a real big problem.
I got a dealer tag
Sir,
for you.
so we are in that process. I received and sent back on Friday the information, so checks in the mail and titles in the mail, so they're crossing.
So now we're waiting on the DMV, which could take forever. They're so far behind.
It went a little smoother with the grass truck. Yeah, it was a quick turnaround. That may have been the one that you heard. We did receive, had a little hiccup, got that fixed, and that's on the road.
But I will say, it may have been a little premature to put a street sweeper out there because
I agree.
contractors have been here and there and trying to finish it
joking
out.
around.
I know, but I do think anytime there's a large-scale project like this, unfortunately, where we tear up the world, and it seems to go on forever, in particular, the first part of this year was just wet as it could be, and now we haven't had as much rain to speak of to try to hold that down, that we just appreciate everybody's patience, and we're close to the end.
Oh, we are so close.
You need a
It's
motion
so ready to be done.
You need a motion to approve the change order?
Yes, sir.
Make a motion to approve the change order.
Second it. Ricky Hines.
Got a motion and a second, Mayor.
Motion and second to approve the change order.
Oh, okay, you changed it. We got a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
I
Okay.
will say, I hope we're gonna have some conversations with DOT. The way those streets were cut and then asphalt put back down, really, and I realize we did all we can do. Aesthetically, it looks terrible.
pardon the interruption, but yeah, I've had conversations with DOT about they didn't want to do anything in our stuff until we were done with the big stuff. So we asked them to pause. You know, they had Main and Church on the list. We told them, hey, go ahead with Laurie Ellis, because that's all, you know, that was out.
How about Cooper Street?
Well,
We don't know nobody
ago.
living on it.
but we had to tear that one up in front of your house.
Main-
So we didn't want to fix that and then have to come back.
Cooper Street's next year.
Just-
That's what they told me.
So milling and resurfacing, those are on the,
Well, you said 2028?
on the, are on the horizon. As far as exactly when, I can't
I
speak to
mean,
that, but it is
We'll go a long ways into making our downtown look a little better.
certainly.
When will Chapman Street be? Chapman Street, where is it at now?
Iowa Street.
With,
I know it's our street, but I know one point we didn't do it because of Boyd Street, excuse me. We didn't do anything because of Boyd.
okay, so you're talking about our own town streets projects.
I'm asking about one street, Chapman Street.
Right, and that was in the thought of, let's have Boyd Street done, have our culvert project done, have this sewer project done,
Yes.
and then we can look at working on Chapman, along with having to finish Gaylord Street.
Clean Chapman Street.
So when?
Certainly,
It's currently not in the budget.
that's right. So, I mean, we can start budgeting for, doing some planning with the engineer to try to get a budget dollar figure, so we can then include that in the FY budget for council review and approval.
Okay, you can send me an email tomorrow and let me know what's in the budget for this year, because I did,
We did not have a huge
I would have to go through.
project. We were going to try to tie up some loose ends. Gaylord, we've got some patching that needs to be done. We were able to, due to the contractor being in the area and the condition of some of the streets, we were able to get some really bad spots fixed, with the paving contractor being on site in between locations, so that kind of worked out in our favor.
And if you all will recall, we've done some really large streets projects, used a substantial amount of that Powell Bill Reserve money in addition to most of our annual allocation. So we decided this year, current year that we're in, not to have one of these big projects because, as Ben said, we knew all of these other projects would be ongoing, and we just needed to sort of try to catch up with what we had already on the table. So that's why there's no large scale, even though we know we have needs. That's why there was no large scale street resurfacing project this year.
Thank y'all.
Okay.
Thank you, Ben.
All right.
Thank you, Ben.
Item number 2 is the noise ordinance revisions.
This is now Chief Will Heights' show because for items 2, 3, 4.
I got a lot.
And if I could ask that he could do 2, 3, 4, 6, and 7, I'll get back to 5 at the end, if that's okay.
Okay, that's fine.
That means we're skipping cemetery update till the end.
Unless you have one for that.
No.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, and the rest of the citizens who've hung in there. I know we went a little long on the stormwater. So after looking at the noise ordinance in great detail, talking with the town manager, I would like to recommend a few things to the noise ordinance, which I think would benefit all the citizens. First, there's several notations of a time limit being 11 p.m. I would recommend that be backed up to 10 p.m.
What, you might want to go a little bit further about what you're referring to.
So in the scope of the ordinance, it says amplified music can be played between the hours of 11 p.m. or not be played from 11 p.m. to 8 a.m. So that means from 8 a.m. to almost midnight, you could have music as long as it wasn't disturbing as it's defined. I think that should be backed up to 10 p.m. And obviously, that's got to do with citizens, and I think 11 PM is probably past a lot of people's bedtime, even on the weekends. And I think 10 PM is a more reasonable time to kind of be in the shutdown phase. Not necessarily shut down the business, but as far as a live music event or whatever the event would be.
Well, so, let me just ask this right here. So, in other words then, Chief, then a band that's playing, if you said 10, that band actually will have to break it down at 9:30.
No, sir, they would have to stop their last song at 10 PM. They can break down the rest till 2.
Okay, I'm just asking.
Yes, sir. The second part would be about how we measure. So right now, it is a very subjective thing about what is loud and disturbing, depending on what the officer thinks compared to what the citizen thinks. And that can become a little cloudy. So I would recommend that we invest in some noise meters of some sort. And then we have citizens, business owners, stakeholders, council members come together, and we'll put on some music in the daytime and in the evening, because in the evening, sound travels farther than the daytime. And we'll come up with a reasonable, what a number is on the meter that is acceptable, and then there's a number that is above what a normal range would be from 8 AM to 11 PM. And then we'll have to come up with another number for the permitted individuals, whether it be a resident or a business. And if they have a permit, now they have a number that they can exceed with a permit to this level from, I think the distance is 100 feet from the property line. And that's obviously a 4-hour period for permitting and at this exceeding permittable level. And that wouldn't be just my decision, it would be any citizen who wants to attend, the business owners, and we come together to choose what that number is, because it's not fair to anybody for me just to choose it, or let's say Local Oak just to choose it. But,
However, I will say, Chief, I love the idea of input from businesses, citizens, et cetera, and I think we definitely should do that. But ultimately, everyone may not agree what that number is, so obviously the town will have to
right,
decide.
and we'll
but
have to
with
make the
input,
final call, correct. And then lastly, I think we should make, I think the permitting for citizens in their residence, 4th of July, birthday party, wedding reception, that should all stay the same, except to 10 o'clock is the shut-off time. I do think in the business district, it should be either a quarterly permit, a seasonal permit, whatever the verbiage is or you would want to establish. But I do not think a business that, one, may not be violating any kind of ordinance, and two, that's part of their livelihood, should be limited to 2 events a month for a year within 1,000 feet of the same place. I don't think that fits our growing downtown district. And I don't think it's really fair to use a residential measuring stick for a business downtown.
And I think also to be a good idea to bring the businesses, to let them talk about that.
Yeah, I think, you mean in this whole process about revising the ordinance?
Yeah.
I think that's the chief's
Yeah.
idea, is to bring in business owners and citizens to talk about.
In the metering phase of this, I don't know that I've missed anything that.
I'm sorry, Chief, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I was talking about in the permitting part of it.
Oh, I know Chief has met with at least several business owners downtown.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about.
Oh, as far as quarterly, seasonally?
Right, yeah, see how they,
Gotcha.
what their feedback is.
Right, what their needs
You know,
are.
Yeah.
So what I'd like to do is put my hands on the best, latest, and greatest, and I don't want it to be a phone on the officer's app. I need it to be a calibrated, kept up, top-of-the-line device that we can use for our assessment and bring you back something when we get our hands on those and we're ready to bring something back.
I will say that today, I'm going to date myself now. The very first noise ordinance I wrote was many, many years ago, and the devices that were being used at the time did not measure bass. And that was one thing that was always a point of contention, is that these devices don't measure bass. Well, it's my understanding that the newest and greatest do measure bass. So that component that has been problematic in the past, we should be able to address that as well, in addition to.
And there's some ordinance language that is
Yeah.
as well outdated.
right.
It talks about a tape, a CD player.
Yep.
What?
We don't have that anymore. At least, some people don't have that anymore. Some people like their CD, or even an old record player is really classical to play a piece of vinyl. Still can't beat that sound. Can't beat that sound.
Yep, vinyl's making a comeback, Chief. I got some.
But I would concur with Chief Will Height's request that we basically drill down into some of these specifics and get a revised ordinance that makes a lot of sense and tries to address everything we've talked about collectively and get that back before you.
If you don't mind,
Soon.
because there's some business owners here, is there totally, anything that I just totally whiffed on as far as the ordinance goes in your, as far as the downtown?
Soon, yes. We could certainly try to get it by November. That's going to be pushing it just due to the,
Depends on how much they cost.
well, that plus trying to meet with, different folks. But we can set that as our goal. I'll let you know ahead of time if it looks like, for whatever reason, we may not make that goal, and certainly try to bring it back in December, if you all are inclined.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I have just one question, since we're on sound. How many citations have been written to vehicle owners that's got these mufflers that they'll wake you up at night?
So I don't know an exact number. I know there's been several. I know one truck that got right beside one of our officers, and his term was, he piped me.
Which was really smart.
Which means he got on the gas right beside him, and
I know.
I think he-
There's a vehicle back in Cooper's Point. He loves to come out on Cooper Street and turn it on.
That's why my 20-year-old electric vehicle is still going. No noise. 20 years old. People might like the speed. It's supposed to do 25. They won't do it at 17. Sorry.
they got one now
I do
that,
move
they got one now that'll beat a gas engine. You might want to trade yours in.
My
Okay.
Tesla would beat any gas vehicle.
No, I mean speed.
Oh, yeah. Well, it will.
Right. My question, I got a question. You were saying that the measure device, that you're going to check in and see what it actually costs or what we need to purchase for a device to measure sound. Is that correct?
Well, that
Or are
would
you going to go ahead on and purchase something? That's what I'm asking.
We would not want to make the purchase until we knew that that's where council agreed to
Find out
go
how
from the
much it
ordinance
costs.
perspective. But
Exactly.
certainly checking into the price of such devices and how many we would need is part of that.
Yes, okay.
I won't let the cost, even if I have to beg, borrow, and steal to use one, that'll hold up the process.
No, but we wouldn't
Okay.
buy prior to making sure that was the process we
Oh,
were.
yes.
Yeah.
We were the first town in Pitt County to have a radar gun back in the 60s. And one of the first to have, thanks to you, we've had, 10 years we've had the bulletproof vest, the vest? We're the first town to get the vest.
No, sir, that was long before my time. But Winterville, with the previous administration, was one of the first in Pitt County to wear body-worn cameras.
Yes. Yep.
We had them
Cameras right
a long time ago.
Yeah, Mayor came on one time and said, I've taken away the radar gun on TV. It served 24 years, Mayor. Mayor Jackson did 24 years.
I think that would be a great path forward that you have recommended this time, to check and see if we can find something that can measure the sounds?
We feel confident we'll be able to find that. It's just making sure that our ordinance is written such that it gives the officers the tools, in addition to the sound meters, to be able to more efficiently measure sound, and currently we just don't have that.
And we will have public hearings on this, right? Ordinances, these changes.
I don't think public hearings required unless council would like a public hearing.
It's not required, but certainly if the council wants to have it, then it's public.
I like to have it so that we can make sure that anyone who either opposed it or who were the people that are in favor of it would have a chance to voice their.
And staff certainly thinks that's great. I just will say that that definitely probably would not mean that we're not coming back in November.
Okay.
So
That's what it's gonna mean.
December makes it a little more interesting just due to the nature of that meeting and the fact that we will have a changeover, and we have old business and the changeover in board and then the new board. So we'll just need to know that well ahead of time so we can advertise and make sure that, we meet the public hearing requirements.
Yes. Due to the fact that all the business owners may not be privy to your conversations with them. I mean, because across the highway at Harley Davis, when they have their events, I hear them at my house on this side.
You're
and I
right.
don't know if they would even attend unless they knew it was something that directly affected them.
I think
somehow.
you make a good point. Let's see how far we get, and then I'll be back with the council to see if a public hearing in December, which is sort of an iffy time. Don't know if you want to try to do it in January, just to make sure that as many people that can attend will come. But let's see kind of what progress we make between now and at least the November meeting.
Okay.
Well, before you go, Mayor, I was just thinking, wouldn't it be something, Terry, that you would, or Chief, would send out to all business owners?
We'll see, but
I'm just
I mean,
asking
all
that
business
question.
owners, that's a lot of businesses. So the answer is generally, no.
Okay.
There's only probably, on one hand, businesses that would actually play some sort of music as part of their business.
Right, and so you would notify.
That would be pretty easy, yes.
Right.
I could do that just
Right.
by
You could
myself.
do that.
All over town?
Well, if there's only 4 or 5, I can, yes.
I mean, but you know that there's only 4 or 5
Harley-
all over town?
That
That
play
would
live
play
music.
Well, I didn't know we were just talking about live music. We're talking about music and anything that would exceed the certain decibel level. Did I miss something?
I can't imagine there being that many places.
That's what I was thinking. I was thinking we was talking about
That's
businesses.
fine. I just know that when you notify us, I stand corrected.
Well, maybe I stand corrected. Maybe I'm confused. I mean,
I thought we were talking, the noise ordinance affects the entire corporate limits, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I just didn't know, just didn't know how we would determine all of the businesses that have music or would be affected.
well, the noise ordinance can be a machine.
Yeah, that's right. And it could be not music.
Right, could be not music, could be cars, driving school, cars. I mean, backfire. I mean,
But you also have a list of people that have applied for permits, too. So that's a good source, but may not be but 5 or 6 businesses, but we have those people who have applied for permits. I think we could get but I just want to make sure that everybody that it would truly affect would know about the ordinance and have some input, some ideas to share.
okay. I just wanted to ask that question.
Okay.
Okay, let's move on to the animal control ordinance.
So our current animal control ordinance is in line with state law. It's robust. It is also in line with what the county actually works by. So I think the issue was that the dog in the last incident was not removed from the property in the unfortunate dog bite incident. I was able to speak with the new director of animal control during the Watermelon Festival about this incident, and he basically communicated to me that the only reason that that probably happened were two-pronged. One is the owner was able to provide current and up-to-date shot records, which we also require when we are capturing dogs and holding them for a certain amount of time. We also require that. And the fact that they are doing a multi-million-dollar rebuild on adding a new wing to the shelter to give them more space, and they didn't have adequate space during their construction phase, kind of like our streets. However, because he's new and we have known each other, gosh, I don't even know how long, he's also a volunteer EMS worker? Fireman? Part-time. What did I say? Reserve? Anyway, we know each other, so our relationship with Pitt County Animal Control is in a different place. Even to the point where maybe we might be able to go back and revisit what they charge us, how we operate.
Would it help if we gave them funds each year to help with the dog situation? The police department wouldn't have to do it.
I'm sorry, gave who funds?
Couldn't we give the county funds so the police department would have to do it?
Well, they would charge us, but that would take it completely out of the town of Winterville's hands. It's the police department and Public Works collectively that offer this part-time service. So,
Wouldn't it be wonderful, though, Chief?
I don't think it would be wonderful. Some of my officers would think it would be wonderful, if I'd be truthful.
What do you think estimated cost would be?
I'm not sure what other entities are paying for the county to do that service. We can certainly check into that.
We hashed this around just a year or two
we
ago.
did.
They sent us a cost of,
Well, it was a lot.
right.
How much was it?
It's a lot,
I
but the
don't-
big thing is we don't have to troll.
Well,
Okay.
and no more animals than we currently,
Right.
an average that we send to Pitt County. I just felt like that would,
Okay. Good point.
the county, they have the whole county to
I'll back
cover.
off. Go ahead. Chief.
Again, our folks don't love it, but so far, it's been a successful endeavor.
They don't dislike it as much as they act like.
Okay. I don't have any time.
Any other questions about the animal control ordinance?
No more than just one thing. If the incident that we had with the dog biting a child,
Mm-hmm.
do you think that we need to look at to beef up our ordinance on the way that we are disciplining this action if it does happen? Because I know that we have something in place, but does it need to be addressed a little bit thicker than what we have? I think that's what I'm asking.
We turn that over to the county, and the
So we
county
turn it-
handles.
Yeah, our enforcement action in that scenario was to issue a citation for dog run at large, and then the county does dog bite.
Yes.
uh,
Investigations and
Yeah,
quarantining of the
and issuing
animals
of
and-
fines or whatever they require. I mean, sometimes they even put a dog down. But that's
They have-
outside of our purview.
They have historically and routinely been rabies control historically throughout the county. That has always been the county, except for Greenville's a little different. But that's something that we wouldn't undertake ourselves anyway.
So in that scenario, I would probably ask, so there's not a law that we could enforce that is above and beyond what our ordinance is, other than I could deem their dog to be vicious and send them a notification of that, and then that puts them in a position to have to do something else, but the county does that as well.
And they make determinations on the viciousness of an animal. they quarantine the animal, decide where the animal's quarantined, all of that. That's something that our folks aren't, I mean, again, it's only a part-time service we offer, and our folks aren't trained, or do we have folks that can do such work?
It's interesting.
Okay.
Should I? Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. You can introduce me. I will start. This is about the traffic calming measures. We talked in length about last time about Railroad Street and whether we should jump right to a speed bump halfway between Tyson and Boyd. As a staff, we talked about starting with possibly a flashing light on the top of the stop sign and to make sure the striping is down good. And we've just, through Governor's Highway Safety points, have gotten our last speed sign was 30 years old. This one is one of those ones that says speed limit is this, your speed is this, and it starts to flash. Good spot to start whenever we get our hands on that.
Oh, we got to get a new one.
In front.
Needed a new one.
We do need a new one. It's solar powered, so it doesn't take these crazy batteries and things like that. But it's obviously up to council if you want to start with the lights and the speed sign, or you want to go straight to some traffic control obstacle. I know the fire chief would say, no.
Not a fan.
Where?
Start with the flashing.
Flashing.
Yeah,
I like that better.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
People wear.
That'd be both sides, north and, yes, north and south both. All right. So Ms. King, that Hillcrest has some speeding issues. We, as a staff, we got together, we threw around many ideas. Some were just not aesthetically pleasing, and then we came across this, which I liked, if I can get it to open.
Slideshow.
Oh, this is bad. How do I make them talk together? I can't see that. Can I look at both screens? Okay, here we go. Nope.
Right.
So how are you supposed to see Start Slideshow from all the way over there? Oh, I see that.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Brian. Okay, what we've come up with is something called a speed table. Once you see it, you'll be familiar with it. I had kind of forgot about these. Wow, look at me.
Chief, what you do? Oh, there we go.
All right, now I see. I am right now.
What's the cost in the meantime?
Why is it not going right and left? These? See, this is what I teach in instructor school, is to rehearse and practice before it's showtime.
Hey,
All right.
Well, did you get it?
there we go.
All right, that is what a speed table, after all that, that is a speed table. It doesn't have to have that red on it. I do like the brickwork at the top of the table. The slight elevation, I've seen it in brick and also in asphalt. But they look a lot better than speed bump, a lot better than Rock'em Sock'em Robot cones. That's probably a close representation of what it may look like.
Obviously, it's more expensive, but you can take concrete, stamp it, you can make it decorative. I wouldn't suggest we do it out of brick, because that's just a maintenance.
And then you've already seen this slide, but it looks better than speed bumps. It's not as crazy jarring on the vehicle as a speed bump. But you do have to slow down. And obviously, I don't know what it costs yet. I haven't dug that far into it until I like it. And let's do it.
Chief, I went out and looked at East Main and Brook Lane over in Winterville Crossing. That stretch through there.
That's straight.
Yeah. How about you already got a stop sign at Brook Lane. How about a stop sign on the East Main, right there at that intersection? Kind of slow them down.
About three-way stop.
Three-way stop sign there.
I mean, going straight at Main down through East Main.
Put the two stop signs
Before you get
right
to
there
that
at Brook.
sharp turn.
Yeah, at Brook Lane. Yeah, because I went out there and looked, and I was just sitting there, and man, they were busting through there. If I had a radar, I could have clocked them, you know. But they was coming through there, you know, and I can understand. I had got a call from a citizen, and so I went over there and just sat. And she was correct. They coming through there. And if you had something there just to slow them down, you know.
I mean, they've worked in several other areas of Canterbury and different places.
We have definitely employed the four-way
Yeah,
stop.
I think that three-way, we need to look at putting a three-way stop in there, you know. What do we need to do? Because, I mean, it's dangerous.
And you're so right, because I was right there on Evergreen Drive yesterday, and I was visiting some friends, and on that stretch, right before you get to Hillcrest, you know, you turn right, you get on Hillcrest, or you can keep straight going north on Evergreen. And that's a pretty large stretch. Man, one come through there, I know he was wide open. And the resident I was visiting, they said, we have small kids. Suppose that we didn't have a handle on our kids like we do. It can be very dangerous for our kids. We need to come up with something beside a blinking light to slow down this traffic. Unless you can put blinking lights all over town. Because like I said, right there on Evergreen Street Drive, I mean, he was getting it. And she said that, they say that on a regular basis. So I don't know where we need to place caution lights all over town or start investing in some speed bumps. Something needs to do. We need to do something to slow this traffic down.
Is there no intersection there where a three-way stop would break that up? I don't know off the top of my head.
I don't know.
I'll have to investigate it.
I know on Brook and East Main, a three-way stop will break that up.
I don't think a three-way stop would stop this one because it goes right on down, right into a curve.
I'll drive out there
And then,
check it
Chief,
out.
maybe maybe increase more patrols through these areas that, you know, that we're seeing a lot of increase, or people are complaining, you know, increase of speeding, more visibility in that area, not just all peak time, I'm you know saying. I mean, yeah.
Get it. All that's us all day, every day.
Yeah, right, but I'm just saying, you know.
Your neighborhood's pretty bad too.
Yeah, my neighborhood's pretty bad. I patrol my neighborhood. I stand out there and yell at them.
Chief, I don't normally dump two other areas on you without discussing it. I don't do it in a meeting normally, but since we're talking about it, right out here in front of Town Hall,
Yes.
and right out here behind Town Hall, they blow that stop sign. There is a pet milk truck that blows it wide open every single day,
Every
never
regular
even
basis.
hits the brake.
Stop sign,
And
don't
somebody's
get it.
gonna get smashed there one day. So just as you're,
Is that a specific time that he comes through there?
it's usually either late morning or early afternoons. I don't know where they're delivering, obviously over here
Milkman.
somewhere, but yeah, a great big milk truck. I mean, he is wide open. But thank you.
But don't leave out Cooper Speedway.
But Chief, I'm gonna ask you one more
They
question.
do fly on that street.
Overall, whenever they do a change or have a problem like we're speaking of right now with speed in your town, once they make a change, they go back and look at the results of the changes that they made. If they place speed bumps in it, it ought to be some sort of statistic to show that it has improved the situation or it didn't improve. So I think that there ought to be something out there that can be able to help us to show what other ones have done, to show that it has improved the problem that they're having.
I can tell you that where we went down in Canterbury and did a lot of that, the complaints have really decreased a lot. And really, with the speed bumps, it's a little different. It's, let's see how fast I can get going between speed bump to speed bump. I heard that from Chief Moore.
They do what?
I mean, I have seen better results actually with adding some three-way stops at intersections where they have to,
Physically.
kind of leapfrog through the neighborhood instead of just a straight shot.
What we probably need to look at.
Well, I
That's
don't-
what we probably need to look at then.
I will tell you that Jones Street, we still get a fair number of complaints, and those speed bumps have seen better days on Jones Street. But I mention it because as you all are contemplating three-way stops, that may be an area where it is appropriate to put a three-way stop.
Well, can I say something about Jones Street? Is that the speed bump that we do have there, you can go around the speed bump,
Right.
a regular sized vehicle. You don't have to even touch the speed bump to go around beside the speed bump and the curving and keep right on getting up.
Yeah.
So
Where at, on Jones Street?
on Jones Street.
That
Well,
speed
you must
stick.
have a different vehicle than what I got,
What,
so I can't go around it. I can with the golf cart.
The one that I'm speaking of is down there by the rest home,
I do think that,
down north, on the north end. Yes, they'll go around that speed bump on a regular basis.
You mean the one that's like a stick,
Yes, like a little,
speed stick?
Yeah, it should have been a little longer. We can blame that on Travis.
well,
But I can't dodge it completely.
I would encourage council to consider the installation of potentially a three-way stop along Jones, because what I'm noticing is that coming from Worthington to the first speed, bump, stick, folks can get up some speed between the two, and then as you're going towards Main Street,
Well, it'll be better once the roads are being torn up so bad, all this construction going, people trying to dodge to, get around town. And that's affected people trying to move around. You've had more traffic in the neighborhoods.
I
especially
do
Jones
agree,
Street.
that's true.
Now that the roads are, back to normal again.
With school, Jones is still pretty heavily traveled. I just happened to notice that personally.
I see you didn't have listed up here, A.G. Cox, traffic problems.
I can report that they started a new traffic pattern late last week. The principal is out in the middle of the road being an active participant. They've changed it from one drop-off line down Church Street from Lori Ellis. It's the most organized I've ever seen it. It rivals W.H. Robinson.
Well, I like to say I had something to do with
Thank you very much. If you talk to the
Well, it really
principal.
messed my drop-off up, but it's okay. It seems to work better.
I do know you were out there several times talking to the SRO about it, and they were resistant to change it, but it was horrible trying to come off of any road. Everybody was trying to get onto Boyd to come down beside the school, and it was backed up all the way out onto Mill. It was not good.
That's all right, it was a good guy there, he did a good job.
He is doing a good
I talked to
job.
him earlier, and the principal both, and you need to do something different, it's not working.
Chief, it was just mentioning earlier today how well the.
I did. I stopped
Cox-
right in the middle of the road
Yes.
and told Principal McDuffie that I've never seen it like this, and he did.
Yeah, him and his whole staff, I think they're doing a good job out there. Because I went through the line just to see. And,
Remember that this school here, Robinson, is the B school. She's doing excellent, we need to honor her for Christmas at some point in time, when the few B schools in the county, Robinson. I think there are 5 of them in the county, it's 1 of the 5, so
That is excellent.
we need to give her a bonus for Christmas. It's a good job.
She's getting one if she's a B school.
yeah.
Yeah, but we need to give her one too. Good to our kids, that's great, excellent job.
What's up next, Chief?
Next is junk vehicles. So I pulled the last 6 months' stats, and there were 14 junk vehicles identified, 12 complied, and there are 2 that are pending a certified letter before they get towed away in Don's neighborhood. I'm sure he'll be happy about that.
How about the one that's in
That's good, 'cause I told
Shamrock?
them folks a week ago we were gonna have them out of there.
How about the one in the,
So we can't,
Not in a week, right?
we're going to have them out of there, but not.
Yes. we've got
So we
some
have
time.
to attempt to notify the property owner or the vehicle owner. And then once we get either a confirmation that they've been notified or that that has failed, it was a failed delivery, at that point, we can tag it for 7 days. And if it doesn't have anything happen in 7 days, then we tow it.
how about the one in Shamrock, all those covered cars still there?
I'm not familiar with that.
Evergreen? The Loop?
So I was going to address, if we got in our car and we drove around, which myself and the lieutenants have done, not in the recent past, but a couple of years ago, I reported we identified 150 cars in town that qualified as junk vehicles.
Add down 14.
So my officers have split, there's 4 shifts. Each shift has a quadrant of town, and they are responsible for identifying junk vehicles in their quadrant. I'm doing some additional things to make sure that they are actually doing that. It doesn't take very long to go find a few junk vehicles in 12 hours. In addition, we also encourage complaint-driven junk vehicles are probably our best method, because citizens, they have to look at it every day, or they see it every day, and we may not notice it as we drive by to doing something else. So we encourage that, but we have, again, rekindled the search for junk vehicles in town.
Thank you.
And you know, we don't want to wander in people's backyard to identify a junk vehicle. Most of the time, if it's being complained on, it's somebody's in their backyard, it's from an adjacent property, and they're looking out their back under their pergola or something, and they're looking at a junk vehicle. So we don't normally do that, so you need to be able to, at least for us, to see it from the roadway or around the side of a house. And there are some in the back that aren't in compliance as well.
Well, if they're in the back,
You have to cover them.
you gotta cover them.
The yellow Mustang you see from the railroad track comes from Aiden.
Yeah,
Forever.
I know which one you're talking about.
Backyard is very.
But you can only see it from Highway 11. You
That's right.
can't see it anywhere
Right.
else. That's why,
But if you can see it, and it's
You can
not
see it.
covered, it's in violation,
that's right.
assuming it meets all the other criteria.
Yes.
Been there a while.
And lastly, until reports, Myrtle Street, we've got another piece of business in a minute about Myrtle Street, but we checked it, 20 checks since our last meeting where our citizen had the complaint, and no parking on the side that has no parking this side of the street. And more to come about Myrtle Street in new business.
You mean you didn't get any violations?
No, ma'am.
Not new business, you're in old business. This is the last item in old business.
Oh,
Except for number 5.
I'm sorry, okay.
Except for me.
So, back in 2016, council approved to implement no parking on the east side of Myrtle Street. For whatever reason, we haven't really wanted to pin it on anybody, but when council approves an ordinance, then we draft the ordinance language, we bring it back, and it gets put on the agenda, then it gets inserted into our book of ordinances and gets published online and all that. So the approval process was done. The language of the approved ordinance for Myrtle Street was never executed and put into our book of ordinances. So we're bringing this ordinance back with the language so that the officers, if they found somebody, they'd have legal authority to enforce any. They were going to suggest until we brought this back up and got it actually officially published.
So we need council to approve that
So
ordinance.
moved.
Second.
Aye.
The good thing is the signs have already been up for 3 years.
That's what I was getting.
We all
did not-
have those situations, Chief.
I didn't want to go there.
We've already
Tony
been
made a
there.
motion,
Yep.
Veronica seconded.
Did I hear a motion?
Yeah, Tony
We
made
have
the
a
motion.
and-
Second and a second. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Chief, before you leave, I was gonna do it at the end of the meeting, but since we're talking about parking, I got this complaint,
Is it
on
about?
Wedgewood Drive. Are
I
you
got it
familiar with
for my reports coming up. I'm going to
Okay,
ask you to consider it or let me investigate it.
okay.
All right. This could be a lengthy discussion, so let me, if I could, just kind of give you an overview and then see how council wants to direct it. You all have, I broke this down into 2 subsections for the purpose of tonight's meeting. This is a cemetery update on our expansion. Subsection A deals with the actual update on the project itself, and I'll give that to you momentarily. And B actually relates to the discussion of cemetery rules, regulations, and the prices that we're charging for the plots we're selling, and a comparison to other places. So currently, the cemetery expansion project, the update, the Wooten Company, our engineer of record, has completed their work. They did boundary surveying and plot staking. That's complete. Staff is currently proceeding with the marking of each lot. That would be the group, usually of 8 individual plots, and preparation of the site. This work's going to obviously, weather dependent, going to take a couple of months to cut in the roads and to get everything as it should be. So I still think we're sometime into the first of the year, early in the first of the year, before we'll be ready to start selling. So any questions on the actual expansion project itself? So that is moving forward. So what you have in your packet on subsection B is a little history, and it goes into basically the information you have deals with the rules and regulations and how, what the current rules came to be. We discussed this in 2012 over the course of about 3 council meetings where we had some people from out of town coming in and buying large numbers of individual plots because of a relocation of a family cemetery, I think that was on Allen Road.
Allen Road.
As a result.
Speedway.
Of the Speedway.
Bart Williams.
And then basically they're just buying up plots and transferring.
He bought 48 at one time.
Right. So you all put some things in place to keep that from happening. So I gave you just sort of the history behind that as we get ready to open the expansion. Also, you have a table. The finance department did a good job of putting information together. You have a table that kind of gives you the overviews of comparisons of resident and non-resident prices for plots, cemetery plots in Greenville, Washington, Ayden, Farmville, Tarboro, Rocky Mount, Kinston, Newbern, Wilkerson's, and then obviously we include what we charge and kind of give you an overview. It is staff's opinion that currently Winterville charges $450 for what we dub a resident. If you live here, you own property, and you can show that you have family members. There's a whole set of criteria that's included in your information. We think for perpetual care, that is an awfully, I'll use the word cheap. I don't like that word, but it is certainly inexpensive, and we believe because certainly never going to make your money back on such an endeavor, but in order to try to recoup at least part of our money, we feel like council should take a look at increasing the costs of individual plots within the cemetery. And I realize that tonight is probably, you need time to kind of go over the information you've been given, and I don't know that you're ready to move forward on what that change would be, if any, but I certainly submit this information to you for your review and discussion thereof, and certainly ready to move forward in discussing this whenever council is ready.
Let's put it on the agenda for next month.
Yep.
Okay. Have a couple of weeks to chew on it, and then be ready to.
Okay.
My thoughts.
If that's,
Do we need a motion to that effect or not?
I don't, assuming that council's good with bringing it back in the November meeting.
Okay. All righty. That takes us down to new business.
No new business.
Other agenda items, this is one from Councilman Moore.
I believe town clerk has already written a letter, had it signed by you, Mayor. We have not had a school board member since 1986. We've not had a county commissioner since 1986. They need to treat us fair so we have an equal chance of electing someone. And did a good job with the letter. So I hope they'll listen to us. But you couldn't tell anything about the maps in the paper. You can't tell much how it's changed. But maybe they'll listen to us. But thank you for the letter. Take care of mine and move forward then.
Mayor, if I could just very quickly, I did get acknowledgement back that 3 of the members did receive it. One gave a few lines about that they would give as much consideration as possible, but I think it's going to take more than
3. What 3 said something? Responded.
Melinda Fagundes wrote, I'll be glad to read what she sent back. She said, "Thank you for sharing your concerns with the board regarding the redistricting maps. The presentation on Monday, which they met earlier tonight with theirs, will explain rationale on how the maps came to be and the guidelines that must be followed when redrawing lines. I appreciate your input. Have a good day, rest of the day. Sincerely, Melinda Fagundes." And Caroline Doherty, and Don Rhodes acknowledged receipt of it.
Don, thank you.
I spoke with Mr. Rose on the phone. We had a great conversation. I tried to contact Miss Barrett, Amy Barrett.
Anna.
I didn't never receive a call back from her, but I did receive a call back, like I said, Mr. Rose, and we spoke. As I was looking at those are the 2 that really was covering our district, and I just was trying to get some input from them. I did get some input from Mr. Rose, but I didn't receive any input from Miss Barrett.
Okay. Item number 13, future agenda items. I think we've already covered some of those. All right, quarterly reports from department heads.
We didn't list these. Ben's coming out first. Come on, Ben. But I did instruct staff that this was the beginning of the last quarter of the year, so to come forward and fill you with lots of information.
I have nothing to report. No, just kidding. So we've touched on a few, but I'll hit the list. The obvious one, the big sewer project, gravity rehab, anticipated substantial completion October 18th. Be generating that punch list post walkthrough. We'll just kind of keep moving that one along so we can move them on down to their next project so we can focus on our next project, which the big one would be the sewer pump station rehabilitation project, which we've secured funding for.
Ben, just
Oh, sorry.
Pull it down so
It does make it
there you
easier to
go.
breathe. The engineer is working on those plans currently and going through the permitting process. Staff has received a set. We're going through them, going to meet with the engineer this week to kind of go over those plans. We talked a little bit about patching. We've got some sinkholes that we fixed around town. We typically like to go dig them up, patch them, or fix them, then we rock them up, and then when we have enough of them, then we come through and get a patching contractor to come lay that asphalt down. We're getting close to that. So we're going to be, hopefully have that going on here shortly. As far as downtown parking and restriping, I've reached out to Carolina Patch and Seal. I'm going to get them on site to come through and show them where everything is to get an estimate for putting those new lines down. We also were waiting for that construction in the downtown area and the paving to be completed so we can restripe parking spaces and, just center lines and such. Multi-purpose center property. We'll meet a little bit later and talk about some of that. That's an ongoing hunt, but we have an update for you. Storm drainage project along Railroad Street and everything. Had a preliminary conversation with the consulting engineer that was involved in the drainage study to make them aware of our desire to move forward, our funding availability. We have talked about the process and just making sure we don't want to take off in the wrong direction since it's this federal money's got some strings tied to it. So we're just trying to pace ourselves with regard to that. Also taking time to not just run right into a design, but go through and ensure that the recommendation is the best avenue that we should proceed down. So we're kind of getting that moving. We haven't taken off with it. We're just trying to get it warmed up and moving down the track. Last one, this is, if you recall, we had presented the ability to abandon Winterville Crossing Pump Station by joining forces with Christ Covenant's next phase of their sewer or their expansion of their site. It's going to require sewer. Currently, they send their stuff across the road to Winterville Crossing Pump Station, but we informed them when they built that their future phases would have to go to the pump station that you guys just annexed tonight. So in doing that, we have been talking with their engineer and when we built that new pump station, we made it deep enough that we could then come in and piggyback on their sewer extension off of Christ Covenant to go a little bit larger diameter pipe, a little bit deeper to allow us to reach under Worthington Road to take the flow off of Winterville Crossing Pump Station, which currently gets there by gravity, and then we pump that up East Main Street to a by force main up to a manhole that then flows to Forbes Avenue Pump Station that then pumps all the way around town. If we can put in this line while Christ Covenant's doing their work, then we can abandon that Winterville Crossing Pump Station, free up capacity at Forbes Avenue, which then allows us to not have to do any major upgrades to that. We take one pump station offline. That's one less that the guys have to deal with. It's flood prone area down there. It's just a win-win win situation there. So that project's currently being designed by Christ Covenant's engineer, so we're kind of following along with that one as well. That's what I got.
Ben?
Yes, sir.
The good people over in West Winterville would like to know about some little ruts over there, if we could get some crush and run or something down a tamp. So that,
Those are the same holes that are existing.
Yeah, yes,
You just
sir.
need more rock in the hole.
yes, sir, we just need more rock in the hole till we can get it paved.
10-4.
And we appreciate you.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you. I guess.
Looks like Evan's ready to go.
I don't know that I need to take my mask off so you can hear me, but I will. So a couple things for you on Fork Swamp Canal Greenway. There hasn't really been a whole lot discussed on that one. There's no real update tonight, but of course that's been one on that list, so I didn't want to go through without naming it. Other updates from Parks and Rec and town events, and so Halloween, of course, is coming up. The Chamber of Commerce is doing a Halloween event this year. They're calling it the Winterville Fright Walk, generally in the downtown area, on Halloween Day, 3 to 8 p.m. We're going to go a little bit of a different route this year with our Halloween event. We're going to piggyback on that one and have our trick-or-treat stations downtown with them this year. We felt that it would be a really good move to do that, to get in with the centralized downtown area with the local businesses, et cetera, and kind of pair our event up with that one. So that's the plan for Halloween this year. Again, we will have our trick-or-treat stations in, and I think Rebecca Cavanis with the Chamber, I met with her earlier today, and she's supposed to have some information out, really start pushing the publicity of that one, I believe, next week. Christmas, we will have Christmas on December 4th. Man, I should have led, we're going to have Christmas like next week. That would have been even better. But we're having Christmas. We'll have all of our Christmas festivities on December 4th. Christmas parade, Christmas tree lighting ceremony. We are talking about some different things with the Christmas tree lighting ceremony, especially obviously in lieu of COVID. Not having the tent for the reception as we normally would, and running some refreshments out of the police concession trailer for that would probably be the biggest modification that I could think of right offhand, but all of that stuff is currently in progress.
Unless you all want to push to do differently, but we feel like that we would pare down, do something much more simplistic while still having an event.
They do the Christmas tree lighting and the parade the same day?
Yes, sir. Yep. Yep, so parade at 2, tree lighting at 6. Yep. Yes,
And then
sir.
I think there's also a plan to have market open, with vendors who want to come and set up on that day to try to make it a nice afternoon event.
And I told Ms. Parker earlier today that when I spoke with Rebecca, I did discuss the tree lighting and Christmas parade stuff, and to see maybe if we could get something a little bit similar to Halloween going with some other downtown businesses looped in as well. So I'll certainly provide any update on that comes along. Thank you.
Evan, I'd like one thing. A couple of Sundays ago, since all this happened to me, I can't drive, but I can drive the golf cart. I can still drive. And my wife and I both, we were out riding around, went over to the park, and it was great to see young people, kids and parents out there playing ball. And then I went back in the back where I really wasn't supposed to go.
Well, at least you admit it, Mayor.
You have cleaned, or somebody has cleaned that place up, and it really looks nice.
Thank you.
Not
Yeah.
like it used to be. It is really, equipment is stored somewhere else, and it looks nice. I just like to commend the whole recreation department.
Once we get through fall sports, and we'll start working on all of the bid specs for that. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, what?
Maintenance facility. We had $120,000 budget for it, yes, sir. Yep.
We need that better for the equipment.
Desperately.
It'll last much longer.
We need it for the equipment, we need it for the guys, yep. As soon as we get through our, like Mayor was just saying, this is probably our Now, it's compacted into a shorter season, but our busiest time of year. So once we get through this fall sports, October, early November time, we'll start to go on some of those projects, yes, sir, in the off-season.
Thank you, Evan.
Thank you.
Mr. Robert. Good evening. Good to see everyone again. Gives me great pleasure to tell you that Eli's Ridge is now ready for homes to be built into it. We have completed everything we can at this point to serve that community. We will now start additional phases of the loop, the new electric territory. We'll start backfeeding on Christ Covenant on the north side of Worthington Road with overhead power line extension. We've already completed the extension running south on Old Tar along from Old Tar and Laurie Ellis South. We've completed that one. We've also finished Holly Grove subdivision. We've got, our community is growing rapidly. We finished Holly Grove. We just got a few street lights to finish up in there. That development will be complete. Got some bores done underneath Old Tar Road to get another component of the loop in going down Laurie Ellis. That's complete a little while back. Ran into a couple of issues there. One of the property owners is deceased, so we're trying to, he was from originally, I believe, from Colombia or Venezuela. So we're now trying to run down his next of kin, his heirs, to get those easements as well. Sprinkler project for the fire department should be scheduled to start this month. I hope that goes pretty quick. The contractor seems to think once he's extending the water main to the building, gets inside the building, maybe a couple of weeks, but that should go reasonably quick. Our under-frequency load shedding is something we're required to do every 4 years. We'll be doing some maintenance on our substations as well so that we can get that testing completed. Long and short of it, all that requires is if the grid itself begins to experience an overload and you see the load increase so much that it begins to pull down the grid, it should open up the breakers and prevent the grid from crashing. And that's why we're required to do that as part of our program. Copper Creek, we're ordering materials for Copper Creek Phase 2. And along those lines, we have been informed by several of our suppliers that a lot of the material is beginning to be the extended delivery times. Last week, we were informed some of the large transformers, we could look for a 90 to 94-week delivery time. Wow. And that spells disaster if it stays like that. Even the smaller ones that we use routinely on our developments, we're now going to be looking at 6 to 8 months. I spoke with our finance officer and told him on the way that as it stands now, we'll be able to continue. We'll have to order materials for a year to a year and a half out in advance. And certainly it looks like the commitment's there on the developers to come in, so we'll have to start ordering our things way ahead of time. So what we may be ordering in this budget year most likely will not be used for probably at least the next budget year. Also doing the same with the new development at the intersection of Highway 11 and Main Street, getting materials ordered for that. Talked with the site contractor who has been told that he is to have the site work ready and completed by April. So obviously they've already started out there. Going to be very important that we be ready as soon as they stop. It's also contacted, believe it or not, by North Carolina Department of Transportation on the Old Tar expansion. They have been directed to begin right-of-way acquisition. They seem to think it's going to be a 2 to 3 year window. We will be advertising requests for qualifications for a new engineering firm to assist us in that endeavor. Our former, if you recall, engineering company was bought out by Pike Engineering. Since that point, most of the engineering staff that have been assigned to projects down east, particular ones we were familiar with, they've all left Pike Engineering and started their own companies now. So we're going to put it out to bid, certainly evaluate everything there. And that's all I've got for this evening. I know you guys are getting into a long meeting tonight. All right, what you got?
I would like to see the town look at doing a supercharging station to draw people that have these electric vehicles to come into our town, charge up, maybe grab dinner or whatever else, just to see our town. A lot of people be traveling, electric cars now. That's the wave of the future. And I like to see Winterville get ahead of it.
There at Sheets, across the state, Sheets has them. The other chargers across the state are very slow. If you try to go to Moorhead and back, you got a slow charger outside of New Bern, nothing in New Bern at all.
You have a supercharger
Nothing
in Kinston, I believe.
Kinston, but yeah,
Right.
but nothing our direction.
Right, that's what I was saying, a supercharger here. Maybe we could draw people into our town. Maybe
But
people-
downtown Boone has 2 chargers that are free, and they're fast chargers. I've tried those out. It took me, I used to go all the way down to Hickory and come back to charge, and I found those 2 behind the library, so I use those.
In the last month, I've talked to 2 different people, couples, that said they are planning their vacations around charging stations. They have to schedule it that way, so it's something to think about. It'd certainly be nice to have something here where they could schedule it right here in Winterville.
You ever have one in front of the town hall, a charger?
Hmm?
Little town of Black Mountain, got one there right in front of the Chamber of Commerce, but it's slow. When people eating dinner, they can be charging up. There's some
Yep.
restaurants in Boone that have 1 or 2. I like to see one around Main and Mill.
We'll certainly look at what that takes.
Thank
I
you.
won't need it, like, charge my home, but other people.
We could just go charge at your house.
Yeah.
Charge at the 2-story house.
There you go. I've heard anything on charging stations, 15 minutes to several hours, so.
That's why we,
Well,
I think,
usually
look
it's
at the
about 30, it tells you in
superchargers.
your car how long you have to be. I go from here to Boone, it tells me I have to stop in Greensboro, how long I have to stop for. I have to stop again at Hickory if you go that direction.
It takes Ben and I 30 minutes to crank our truck some days, so.
Robert, I know you don't have anything to do with CenturyLink, but a resident has contacted me about, on Bayberry Lane, about CenturyLink cable. I didn't understand exactly what he was talking about. He's been trying for 2 years, he said CenturyLink won't even talk to him. And,
We'll take a look at that.
I don't know exactly what was going on, maybe you know something about.
I think there was a phone drop down there, gosh, some time back. That was done as part of a sewer rehab project or a stormwater project. The drop may still be exposed.
Well, and that's probably it. We'll find out.
Okay.
And last thing, I think we're going to meet with MetroNet this week
All right.
to discuss the process for them submitting applications for installation overhead and underground facilities.
I'm not ready to name names, but we've also been approached by a third company that's interested in sitting down. And, you know, I thought so many years you couldn't find another company, but we've had another company come
Now
by.
we got 'em everywhere.
So
Competition.
it's not a bad thing, definitely.
All right.
So,
Tell you up soon, shake it.
Anything else?
Think that'll do it?
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Don, you got some announcements, I think.
Brian?
Well, we're going to ask Chief David a question. You said something about speed bumps. The fire department don't like speed bumps because of the response time. Is that the reason why? I just want to make sure. It's real tough on big vehicles. So there's 2 things, response time, and it's bad on the vehicles.
So real quick on my end, obviously we've got a lot of anticipated residential building coming up, so we're going to be hitting the ground hard and heavy with that, especially Eli's Ridge coming on, the townhome communities coming online. But other than that, we're working on ordinance updates, specifically subdivision ordinance. It's been about probably 15, 16 years since it's been updated, so it's antiquated and outdated. So we're going to try to get that formatted right, get it up to date and up to speed, and look at getting some things in there like the comprehensive plans call for sidewalks in certain areas and all that good stuff. So we'll be coming to you guys with that soon. So that's all I got right now. Thank you.
So did you do those,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to leave you out.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I'm used to it.
did you do those updates to our ordinances that were required? Put them in line for the state yourself?
You're talking about the 160D, yeah, so the zoning ordinance, we're in compliance with that now, so we met the deadline, so when we did that back in October of 2019.
I remember.
20,
You and Stephen did the bulk.
yeah, but we did it in-house, yeah, and we plan to do the subdivision ordinance in-house as well, so.
I just, I knew Mideast was doing it for a lot of towns and stuff.
Yeah.
Appreciate you being able to do it in-house stuff.
Absolutely, and the state made it pretty easy. UNC School of Government made it pretty easy with checklists and their guidance and everything. So we didn't recreate the wheel or anything, but it was a lot of, dotting i's and crossing t's. So.
Thank
Okay. Looks like we get down to the announcements now.
You gonna start on my end this time?
Don's got the.
He gonna let me go with the announcements first. The outdoor concert, Spare Change Band is this Friday, October 15th at the Winterville Recreation Park Amphitheater. Planning and Zoning Board meets next Monday, the 18th at 7 p.m. here in the Assembly Room. On Tuesday, the Board of Adjustment meeting meets at 7 o'clock here in the Assembly Room. Recreation Advisory Board meets on Tuesday, October 26th, 6:30 at the Operations Center. And then one-stop voting starts in Winterville. It does start the week before up at the county office building. I think they're using the Pat's conference room. But here in Winterville, it starts on Monday, October 25th, and runs through Saturday, October the 30th, over at the community room. And then Election Day is Tuesday, November 2nd, from 6:30 a.m. till 7:30 p.m., and that will be both here in the Winterville community room and at the Operations Center. And then on Thursday, November 11th, town offices will be closed for Veterans Day.
Folks, just a reminder, for the early voting, there will only be 2 places in Pitt County where you can early vote, and we are one of them here at the community room, but there seems to still be a lot of confusion about people being able to go to Alice Keene and some of these normal other places that people can go. None of those will be open except for, again, the county offices at the Pat's offices and then here at our public safety building. So if people, you may hear them mention that there is still some confusion that they could go to any and all of the places, but they won't have that available because Greenville's not having their election this year at the same time.
Terry, the Pat address, is that the same address at the county office?
1717, yes, sir.
Okay.
West Fifth Street, yes, sir.
17 West Fifth.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Chief, I didn't mean to leave you out.
He said, yes, you did.
It was my fault. I didn't realize the quarterly report removed us from the report until I read it. But the mayor had a question about some parking issues on Wedgewood. So we have a resident who lives on Wedgewood. I'm sorry, what's the road that connects with Wedgewood Circle? Anyway, long story short, there's a business van that has a trailer attached to it. It doesn't have enough room to park in front of his own house that's a few houses down the road, so he parks his vehicle in the cul-de-sac where he doesn't live. The equivalent would be if a person decided to park their vehicle in front of your home or trailer attached because they don't want it parked in front of their house or in their driveway. There is nothing that prohibits that in our statutes.
Public street.
That's correct. But it's not the neighborly thing to do. I was able to locate, I think it was in Pine Knoll Shores, that there was a ordinance that you could not park 10 feet from the entrance to a cul-de-sac or in the circular part of the cul-de-sac. I was going to ask direction if you want me to look further, how many people in town this would affect other than this one person that is complaining.
And I do believe Pine Knoll Shores based theirs off of, the emergency vehicles and the ability to maneuver inside that cul-de-sac.
Might be your heart. Stops. Anybody.
Well, I wouldn't want, I mean, I had,
Now, again, we have had complaints from other citizens on not cul-de-sacs, but that people have parked extended periods of time in front of their house. Currently, there's no law prohibiting that. So this is only related to cul-de-sacs in this particular conversation, but you have.
there are techniques to defeat a straight road park in front of your house. If that happens to you, get with me, I'll tell you what those are.
Okay.
Additionally, we have an officer that is on the drug task force, the Greenville Drug Task Force, and we don't normally hear about what he's doing and what benefit that brings to the town, but I would like to report that his benefit for being on that task force, we received $30,000 of asset forfeiture money, which we bought 13 new mobile units, computers for inside the cars. Ours were outdated and no longer being supported by Windows 10. They were Windows, we don't even mess with that anymore. So we have several times throughout every year or a couple of years where we get some asset forfeiture money from participating in that. And we have that resource if we need it in our town to bring them in to assist with all kinds of things.
I want to say thanks to the chief, because that money, police has a lot more discretion, independent discretion on how they spend that money when they receive it. It's not funneled through the original coffers of the town like the regular budget would be. So I appreciate, because they did need all of these computers, that he was willing to take that money and spend it on the mobile data terminals. It's a big help on the budget bottom line.
And last thing I have, if you are aware, there are 2 internet sweepstakes locations in our town limits. One is down by CD's Grill. There in the corner, it's called Pirates Play. And the other one is on 4 Lines Road, a place called Sneets. I have a lot of opinions about them besides they're illegal, but I also believe they disenfranchise people that are willing to spend some money that they may not have to spend. And it doesn't only disenfranchise them, everybody that goes in there, it's set up so that you don't win, just like Vegas or somewhere else.
Legal to have those hands?
No, it's not legal.
No.
Not legal.
So I'm happy to inform you that today, this morning, around 9 or 10 a.m., our agency with alcohol law enforcement and the SBI conducted search warrants at those locations. We seized about $8,000 cash from each location. We disassembled all their motherboards out of their machines and disabled both locations this morning. Along with Grifton, they did a partner coordination. They had a problem in Grifton that they took everything of theirs. So hopefully that deters them from being in our town and it pushes them somewhere else where they're not going to maybe enforce the law. But it's a constant.
On Highway 13 down from my house.
Which house?
Highlands Crossroads.
Ah,
Is that our jurisdiction?
county, yeah.
But the county, so it's legal for the county to allow it to happen?
I cannot speak for the sheriff, but the sheriff has the resources to ask for assistance, but you got to realize how many spots there are in Pitt County that are similar to that. They're everywhere. Any place that they can get rent and internet.
They tried to rent it from me, and I wouldn't rent to them. I got a church.
And I will be speaking to the building owners to try to leverage some sort of influence on knowingly renting to a criminal enterprise in the town will be strictly enforced if you want to continue.
What about these trucks that park so that you can't hardly get through certain streets here in town? You have these long trucks and they're parked, one on one side and one on the other side, and it makes it difficult to get through.
Are these transfer trucks or?
You know, they hauling cars or got trailers to them, you know, something like that. It makes them longer than just the regular truck.
We prohibit vehicles with certain numbers of axles. I don't know if these particular situations would make I don't know if they would be considered illegal, but if you'll let us know.
But some of them are trucks with trailers.
I've got a motor home.
It would depend on the numbers of axles. And trucks with attached trailers, like regular pickups or oversized pickups, that does not currently violate an ordinance, assuming that there is no parking regulations already.
But you can't leave the trailer unattached on the
Correct.
side of the road.
Now, we have problems throughout towns where the parking is allowed on both sides of the road, and it can be problematic if a fire truck tried to get through there. That could be an issue, but it's something that currently we've elected not to look at from a town perspective.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Fire Chief? Okay,
Just a reminder, we do have a closed session scheduled.
we do, that's right, we do have.
Just
a-
reminding everybody. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Veterans Day will occur this year, on Veterans Day at 2 o'clock. Had not got a speaker yet. I'm trying to get a speaker for the Veterans Affairs, who is speaking on the number of suicides by military. Also, we have a community breakfast, Vita Branch Church at 8 a.m. for men's breakfast. And Dr. Rouse, who texted me a few minutes ago, has been the guest speaker. Might want to invite him to be a member of our parade at some time. He might be a nice grand marshal in our parade. But anyway, it's a thought. But anyway, hope y'all come out. Chief, will you help us on the 2 o'clock on Veterans Day?
Yes, sir.
We can have it this year.
All right.
No, I'm trying to get somebody from Veterans Affairs to speak on the suicide of veterans. That's my goal.
I'm good.
You're good, okay?
Okay?
Good, I'm good.
Okay, all right.
All good.
Thank you, citizens, for coming out and staying with us tonight. And we appreciate y'all. I'm good. Oh, also just to breast cancer awareness, October's breast cancer awareness. And not just only for women, but also for men. That's it.
Mayor, members of the council, I believe most of you, if not all of you, have had a birthday sometime in the recent few weeks, or it's upcoming, so I just want to say either happy belated birthday or happy birthday to all of you, and thank you for what you do. Good.
I'm glad I have them.
I'm glad I'm still having them too, brother.
Is it time to go to closed session?
I make a motion to go in closed session.
Do I hear a motion, we go out of, adjourn this session?
Oh, yeah. Well,
So moved. Adjourn this session.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Then we go into the closed session.
All right.
Hope it's short, so we got another meeting. Thanks for coming. If more people would come, they'd know more. Good that people do come.
It's 10 minutes. 10. Brother. I gotta work on
Thanks for that letter. Took care
everybody's
of
seen
a
this,
few
but
minutes
I
tonight.
made copies for everybody.
Don. The letter took care of a few minutes.
I know you've already seen that. As you make your way. It shouldn't be too long.
I hope not. I'm looking at
You need me to carry anything? You got it?
No, I got it.
Okay. Okay.
okay?